Good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, October 3rd, 8:47 a.m. We are back once again on another episode of the Market Open. This week's gone fast, dude. We got 1 week left, or 1 day left, and then we got Friday to end up the week. I felt like last week somehow went much slower than this week. But this week is super fast. Like I woke up this morning, I was like, what? It's Thursday? Like I can't believe it's Thursday. But we are here getting ready until we end out the first week of October. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Jobless claims just came out. Market's not really reacting to it too much. Jobless claims were a little higher than expected. And when I mean a little, I mean like 5,000 jobs higher, more than expected. So S&P 500 right now, yeah, it's down 0.16%, basically flat, nothing too crazy in the context of the broader market. We got to talk about Nvidia. Nvidia's up 2% right now because Jensen Huang went on CNBC yesterday and he said some really good things about Blackwell. The entire 13-minute interview he did with Accenture with their new joint partnership didn't move the stock for like 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And then those last 30 seconds, boom, he kicked it out of the park. So that's something really good that we'll talk about. We'll talk about Japan going dovish yesterday, which I think actually contributed to some of the bullish momentum we saw in the semiconductor names as well, which was very important. And then we'll just go through the broader macro. We do have Fed's Bostic and Goolsby, I think, speaking today at 10:40. So we'll talk about that. And then at 10 a.m., we have some ISM data that we have to look at. But I do think we'll get some Fed talk today from the Fed presidents. Maybe they're going to talk about certain ideas that JPOW echoed about 25 and 25 versus 50 and 25. So a little bit of clarity on that, I think, will help markets price in what exactly they should be expecting when it comes to further rate cuts and ultimately what that means for the broader economy. So there we go. Let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's do what we usually do on Thursday. We usually do this every Thursday, or at least every other Thursday. Comment where you are watching from in the chat. We got Persian Prince already doing that. Hello from South Florida. Hello, Persian Prince. Thank you for being here today. But yeah, let me know where you are watching from all across the world, and we will read it out. Dude, I really can't believe that it's Thursday. Like I just like tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow the week is done. Like I just did not expect that we would get here so quickly. Melanie says, if you're going to a wedding in India, have you already picked out your outfit? Probably can't wear Palantir merch. Don't worry, I haven't picked out my outfit, but my mom has picked out my outfit, dude. She is obsessed with like making sure everyone looks good in this wedding in India. I think that's another reason I think this week is moving fast, because in 2 days I'm going to India, like October 5th. So it's like literally 2 days left, and then boom, I'm out of here. And I haven't been there in like 5 years. So things are going very, very quickly to start off October. And I will be back to the motherland in about 2 days. All right, where we have everybody from, and then we'll get started with the market open. We got Honeybee from Georgia. We got Julie Law from Texas. We got Zlatko from Serbia. I love it. We got Houston, Texas in the house. We got Northeast Ohio from Brad. Lisa from Minnesota. You know, I've never been to Minnesota, and I really want to go to Minnesota, although it gets very cold in December. But I had a couple chances to go to Minnesota, but I never got to go there. Minnesota is very, very exciting. We got Aman from India, Rajasthan. I love it. There you go. We got India in the house. We got Vietnam. We got Nepal, Poland, Atlanta, Florida, Houston, Maryland, Turkey, Bay Area, Texas, Indiana, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Georgia, Ontario, Belgium, Vietnam, Germany. I love it. I love it. I love it. From all across the world. Portugal, California. It's so cool, dude, seeing everyone across. Like, it's always so cool seeing everyone from absolutely across the world. Amsterdam's another place I got to go to. Amsterdam's exciting. I feel like that's one of the most exciting parts, or one of the most exciting cities in Europe. How long does it take from India to Jersey? It's about 14 hours, 14-hour flight direct. So it's not a crazy flight. I'll just load up a bunch of podcasts and get through the flight and do what we got to do. Maybe on this flight, I'll actually watch the movies. Like maybe I'll like finally watch Goodfellas or something, like, because I literally have nothing to do other than sit there. So maybe that's what we'll do on this flight. All right, let's get started. We'll start off with Nvidia. If you didn't catch it, this is what Mr. Jensen Huang yesterday said when asked about demand for Blackwell.
Blackwell is in full production. Blackwell is as planned, and the demand for Blackwell is insane. Everybody wants to have the most, and everybody wants to be first. The thing that we have done with with Blackwell and what we have announced, this new AI infrastructure generation every single year. And so we're going to update our platform every single year. And the reason for that is if we can increase.
So pay attention to what he says in these last 30 seconds, because this is really important. This is where Jensen shows he's not just a technologist, but he knows how to speak the language Wall Street wants him to speak.
We're going to update our platform every single year. And the reason for that is if we can increase the performance as we've done with Hopper to Blackwell by 2 to 3 times each year, we're effectively increasing the revenues or the throughput of our customers on these infrastructures by a couple of 3 times each year, or you could think about it as decreasing cost every 2 or 3 years, reducing energy efficiency every single year. And so at a time when the technology is moving so fast, it gives us an opportunity to triple down and to really drive the innovation cycle so that we can increase capabilities, increase our throughput, decrease our cost, decrease our energy consumption. And so we're on a path to do that, and everything's on track.
Okay, so this part I think was really, really important to understand. Notice what Jensen Huang says. I think some people miss like the core point that he was making here. He says, we are going to update our architecture every single year the way we did from Hopper to Blackwell. Basically saying, I mean, what this really means, and that's why Nvidia is up 2% right now, even though it's not like, this is some brand new statement, but him reiterating it kind of got people thinking about it again. Google should theoretically be buying new chips from Nvidia every year, or at minimum every other year. That's what Jensen's saying. Jensen is saying, basically, can we put out a new iPhone every year? And we saw what happened from Apple, when they went from 50 billion to 3 trillion by putting out a new iPhone every single year. Jensen's saying, hey, we have this pricing power on a product that is a monopoly because of all the intellectual property we have based on developing 30 years of GPUs to get to the point where we are. Only we can do this. We know there'll be some competition, just like, there was some competition for the iPhone, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that are winning this game. What if we can convince Google, Amazon, Meta, governments, startups, OpenAI, which we'll talk about in a second because they raised a very big round of funding yesterday, to buy our shit every year? Now, what that does, that decreases costs in the production capabilities because of just economies of scale. That decreases their energy throughput because essentially they're going to be able to make a GPU that is more energy efficient every single year, just like the iPhone's camera was more efficient every year. And that increases their throughput in terms of productivity. So this is where he's so good at speaking Wall Street language. He's like, if we can introduce a new one every single year, that means Google can increase their revenues every year because Google's ads can become more efficient. If the GPU use case for them is advertising, if we have a better chip than Blackwell, or system than Blackwell, architecture than Blackwell, then they're going to have to get that one. Because if they don't get it and Meta gets it and Meta has better targeting on their ads, then Google can't get left behind. And so Jensen's kind of painting this picture that for the next at least 5 to 7 years, they will have new products every year that are better than the old products. And that will lead to increased CapEx, or at least sustained CapEx from all the hyperscalers. Now, my question here is that actually possible? Is it possible for Google to spend, what are they going to spend? Let's just call it like 25 billion this year, roundabout, on GPUs. Will they spend that again next year? Like, probably not, right? You would imagine no, but then again, you think, and the AI demand is so big and they want to build AGI, so yeah, they would. Or if they only spend 12 billion versus 25 billion, is that still good enough? Because Nvidia can expand to other customers. Like, it's not an iPhone where you spend $1,000 one year and then the next year, maybe you trade it in, you buy it for 500, or 2 years later, you spend another 1,000. This is like a lot of money the hyperscalers are spending every quarter. Do they have to spend this money just for the foreseeable future if they want to remain competitive? Maybe. And if that's the case, then $5 of EPS in 2025 does not sound crazy. And higher than at least 40% growth over the next couple years doesn't sound crazy. Next year is probably going to be closer to like 70% growth. The year after that, I think 2026 is going to be the big question. Can they actually keep compounding off of that high of a base? Because it gets harder when the base gets higher. But if they can, I mean, that's going to be very, very important. Rodney says, people don't understand how massive the year-over-year improvements in GPU tech are. It's a slightly nicer phone. The GPUs are literally 2x and 10x faster every single year. So I think this comment is very important. And Rodney, for those that don't know, he works in machine learning, so he has some background knowledge when he's speaking on this. I think that's why the stock is up right now, because I think when Jensen said that yesterday, I mean, all of us not all of us, because this is actually the first time I heard him make this argument, but I'm pretty sure if you're a Wall Street analyst, you've like heard Jensen talk about this idea of increasing productivity within the chips and making them literally 2x to 10x better every single year. But this is the first time I actually heard him make this argument, which is every single year, they're going to come out with a new version of this shit. And I was thinking about it last night. I'm like, if they actually are going to do that and Google actually has to buy those chips every year, OpenAI has to actually engage in the newest version of what Nvidia is putting out, because if they don't, maybe Anthropic will, and then Anthropic will get an edge if OpenAI slows down. Then like, how is this slowing down for Nvidia? Then it's a question of gross margins. Can they keep up those 70% plus gross margins? Which, I mean, that's debatable, but it doesn't seem like the demand itself necessarily has to go away. Jose says 2 points. One, they have a lot of old data centers, so the Blackwell Hopper replaced those old chips and new chips. That's a good point. And two, GPUs are used for their clouding solutions outside of AI. Well, that's another good point. Yeah, all the hyperscalers also have to use cloud, also have to have GPUs to be able to handle all the AI workloads that are on their clouds. So that's also a good point. And I mean, that's a good question. If Google has, 20 new companies every single month that are doing mass amounts of AI workloads on GCP, Google probably needs to invest in their data centers with the latest architecture, which would be whatever Nvidia is putting out. So, I mean, to sum that up, it's like when Jensen said that yesterday, you could literally see the stock go up. That was the only question that mattered. And as I've had 24 hours to sit on it, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I really have never heard of this argument from him before that they're going to come out with a new model. And that's probably why I'm not a big Nvidia investor, because I should know that, right? If I was like, if you're invested in the stock, you should know like the runway and trajectory for this company is a new version of their previous version architecture around GPUs that's better, faster, more resilient, decreases energy costs, increased productivity, likely gets you into the process of building AGI. Like Sam Altman's not going to build AGI alone, or Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai. They need like some real infrastructure behind them, and that's where Nvidia ultimately comes in. So exciting stuff for Nvidia. And if you are an Nvidia shareholder, I'm sure that's music to your ears this morning, hearing Jensen say that everything is going well with Blackwell. Again, the full quote is, Blackwell is in full production and demand for Blackwell is insane and on schedule. Everyone wants to be the first to get their hands on it. That last sentence, everyone wants to be first to get their hands on it. If that same sentiment exists every single year, that's where the Dan Ives theory of like, hey, it's only 9 p.m. in the party, it doesn't sound that crazy. Because every single year, if people still want to get their hands on it, you're getting closer to 4 a.m., but still the party is going on. People still want it. Like if we took that 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. Analogy in the context of iPhone upgrades, I think we're at 4 a.m. Like it's done, dude. No one wants to upgrade their iPhone anymore. But from 2008 to call it 2023, everyone wanted to keep engaging in the party. And now the party, it does feel like the party's slowing down. And I don't know what Apple's going to do for the next upgrade. I don't know how they're going to convince people to get it, because they're having a hard time this time. I do think that the sales will be better than some of what the equity analysts say. But the point is, like, there are so many improvements to probably be made on these GPUs that are better than the incremental ones we've seen on the iPhone, that we're likely going to see more demand continue to sustain itself for Nvidia. Speaking of Nvidia, we've got some big news out of OpenAI. So this broke yesterday, right before the market closed. OpenAI has officially closed. We'll talk about HIMS in a second. HIMS is down based on something that has to do with Eli Lilly. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I don't know if they deserve to be down 13%, but we'll talk about what that means. OpenAI right here closed a funding round of $6.5 billion, valuing the startup at $157 billion. I bring this up to also talk about Palantir, which we'll talk about in a second. Palantir, by the way, in the pre-markets is slightly down, 37.34. We did close above 37.50 yesterday. OpenAI just sold 4% of their company for $6.5 billion of capital. Thrive Capital got in, Nvidia put in, Microsoft put in $720 million. I think Nvidia put in another $500 million, and SoftBank put in $500 million as well. And they had some other investors. But the fact that OpenAI was able to get this type of evaluation, I think it really puts in context what's happening with Palantir. There was a lot of people I saw on Twitter yesterday. The one guy that I know who's actually like, hey, I've opened a small short position on Palantir, and when it gets to 40, I'm really going to double down on that short position. And in my head, I'm like, look, I get the valuations up there, so I understand like why you're going short here. I do think like on a paradigmatic basis, shorting a company like Palantir is just like not the best idea given the resilience and given the fact that if Thiel is dumping almost $1 billion worth of stock and the stock's not necessarily reacting to that, then there's some momentum here that is fundamentally different than what you think in terms of a general understanding of why there should be a pullback. But going short Palantir here requires also reconciling with OpenAI's valuation. I think like if you're short Palantir here, you believe OpenAI is not worth $157 billion. That's a fair take. But then you have to ask yourself, well, wait a second, why did Nvidia and Microsoft decide to pump this bad boy to 157? Now, the cynic in me says, well, it's their investment. They want to protect it. Nvidia gets a lot of revenue from OpenAI. I get it. Like that's fair. The other argument is they actually are building as aggressively as like people think they're building. And we as the public don't have access to all the information in terms of how fast they're going and what they're doing and maybe how quick they are to achieving AGI. But if GPT 4.0, which has been absolutely incredible using it in my day-to-day, gets upgraded to be 10x better in GPT 5 or 6, which should be out in 2025, I mean, what are we talking about here? This is going to be like and I get the argument that LLMs are commoditized, all that stuff, but they are taking a bet that this company is going to be one of the trillion-dollar companies that exists in AI. So what does that mean for Palantir? Well, Palantir has half the valuation of OpenAI. Palantir is actually profitable. Palantir is not growing as much. I get it. But Palantir is also unlocking something that really matters in the context of artificial intelligence, which is the trillion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar opportunity for enterprises. And if you're unlocking that opportunity for enterprises, does that matter more than what OpenAI is doing, at least in the short term, with like consumer ChatGPT subscription dollars? Probably. Maybe in the long term, AGI ends up being like the multi-trillion revenue generator for OpenAI. But still, I think that's where the street's kind of looking like, well, we could buy OpenAI at 157 billion, or we could buy Palantir at 80 billion, which is actually profitable and has been profitable for 7 quarters and is in the S&P 500, right? It's like you start to reconcile the idea that why does it have to go back to, $20? Why does there need to be a 50% correction? Couple stats on this. So Elon raised $6 billion at a $24 billion valuation. Elon had to sell 25% of his startup XAI for the $6 billion. OpenAI had to only sell 4% for their pretty much similar raise to Elon Musk. So obviously investors were willing to give the premium to OpenAI because they also announced yesterday they now have 250 million weekly active ChatGPT users. 2 weeks ago, this number was 200 million. So within the span of 2 weeks, they increased their weekly active users by 50 million. And I don't think Grok is doing that. I don't think Anthropic's doing that. I don't know if Google's Gemini is doing that. Like, it seems like if it's just a chatbot, they have the best chatbot in the damn planet. And that's what's allowing OpenAI to continue maintaining some of their momentum. So that's what you got in OpenAI, and that's some of the momentum we're seeing. It does seem like they are continuously pushing the boundaries. And now with this new fundraising round, it's also good for Nvidia because a lot of that 6.5 billion, I would imagine, is probably going to go to Nvidia. Okay, we'll talk about Palantir more in a second. Let's get through a little bit of the jobless claims that came out and talk about that. So United States initial jobless claims came out this morning. Really was a nothing burger. We're not getting any real reaction. Tomorrow's the big day, folks. Tomorrow I'll be live at 8:20. Tomorrow we get non-farm payrolls. That's going to be very, very important. 8:30 we get that number Eastern Standard Time. And if that number is around 140 to 160, we got some new estimates from Bank of America that we'll talk about in a second, then I think the market's going to really like it. And the reason the market's going to like it is because it's going to show that the risk of a recession is starting to decrease. So the number of people claiming unemployment benefits in the U.S. rose by 6,000 from the previous week to 225,000. Last week, it was 218,000, surpassing market expectations of 220,000. So again, market kind of didn't really care, right? 6,000 more, 5,000 less. Like, these things are idiosyncratic. They don't really matter that much. As you can see right here, July is when we have the largest number, 250,000. Notice July, like I think 15th to 16th was like when the market was topping. You had QQQ, at least in the short term, hit 500 or 502. And then we got this number. That wasn't the best number. And then I think on August 2nd, we got a bad NFP report at like 114,000. And that's when the market crashed. And then we had the yen carry trade and then boom, like everything fell. But since July 17th or July 27th, and a lot of this also could have been due to the hurricane that was happening during that time, we've had claims start to really come down. So we have a little bit of an uptick right here. But again, weekly jobless claims are just not pointing to like, oh my God, there is so much pain in the unemployment market. And it looks like tomorrow, if we add close to 140 or 160,000 jobs in that range, that's bullish. Now, does that mean I think there's two things to interpret here. Number one, because it ticks a little bit higher, that gives the argument again that the Fed could cut. They're probably not going to do 50, but for all the people that are saying, oh, the economy is so amazing, the Fed can't cut, you do have jobless claims ticking up a little bit. You make the argument that, hey, you still want to cut to make sure we don't get into a bad situation with unemployment. Number two, even if we add 140 to 160,000 jobs, it's not adding the 400,000 or 500,000 we were adding in 2022, 2021. So we still, I think, will cut, especially if CPI comes in down next week, which, given oil prices last month, I think CPI will come down pretty aggressively as well. So in the context of the macro, we get some more PMI data. We'll have some Fed president speak in a little bit, but outside of that, the jobless claims were good. And there was no kind of real pain in the context of the unemployment data that we got today. The stress from the storms and the dock issue can cause some ripples. Yeah, so speaking of the dock, let's get into that a little bit. That is not resolved yet. And the port workers are still striking. And there, it doesn't seem like we've reached a conclusion. I think we are getting very close to a conclusion based on some of the articles I've read in terms of negotiation, but we don't have an official answer yet. And the lack of that official answer, obviously, every week that goes by potentially leads to some more pain. Here is one of the senators in the United States and their take on what's going on with the port workers. Let's get their take, and then we'll keep going from there.
Is entering its third day, and President Biden is saying, at least at this point, he won't intervene, even though some manufacturers and retailers are pushing him to invoke a 1947 law that could suspend it. Joining us now, Senator Shelley Moore Capito. She serves on the Commerce Committee, great state of West Virginia. It's been done before when things get really serious, Senator. President Bush invoked Taft-Hartley back in 2002, preventing a port strike. Is that in the cards? Maybe not right now, but soon?
Well, I think the effects are going to be really felt here probably in the next several days. They say a week will take the biggest effect of this strike. And I do believe that President Biden's been asleep here, but I think he needs to wake up in terms of his abilities to invoke Taft-Hartley, as President Bush did in 2002. The eastern ports affect so much commerce, so much business, so much ability for food and agriculture, other things, that this is essential, I think, for us to settle the strike to get settled. And the president needs to take a more aggressive stance here, I believe.
It's an interesting political dynamic now, Senator, because it finally something bipartisan, and that's sort of support for labor. And it wasn't always like that. So both sides are like trying to outdo the other in terms of their support for working people. And I don't know. So that's a dangerous combination. If you invoke Taft-Hartley, you're kind of like cutting the union off at the knees. Or how would it work exactly? It seems like you're removing the ability to do what they need to do to try to get what they feel they're worth.
Well, my understanding is that I fully support the working men and women on our docks. There's 45,000 of them that provide incredible work and work hard, and a lot of it's physical labor, and they should be paid according to their abilities and what they're doing, and get the overtime and all of these things, because we know that shipping is a huge industry and they're profit making, and so those employees should share in that, I think, as the benefits of their hard work. Where I think we look at the rail strike that almost occurred several years ago. We saw that the president came in and tried to get the two sides together, eventually did, and prevented what could have been a devastating strike on our rail workers. The same can be done for our dock workers. We've seen this has been signaled. I mean, I've read where the union really hasn't been in the table much effectively over the last several months. I hope that's not the case. I hope that there's still all kinds of discussions going on between the union and the businesses. But the fact of the matter is these things foment. They have a tendency to draw out longer. And I think it has devastating effects, as I said, on goods and services, but also, we're looking into a huge shipping time of the year for us, moving into Christmas. It's affecting the whole East Coast. We've just had a devastating hurricane on the East Coast. So we're going to need, emergency supplies more than we ever have. So there's other ramifications here that I think should drive the two sides together. I'm hopeful that they'll be able to settle this. I think in the interest of everybody, they will. It's just we want it sooner than later. And I think if the president would weigh in more forcefully, I realize the politics of it.
It's an election year. It's an election year. But
so a couple things about this. The Taft-Hartley Act, it's been in effect since 1947. And Congress actually was able to pass this overriding Truman's veto back then. And the idea of it was it would essentially not allow unions to engage in what we're seeing right now at the ports by kind of holding hostage their labor in order to negotiate for a variety of things. Obviously, there's a lot of nuances to the laws, but it was one of those laws that restricted significantly some of the powers of labor unions. Now, the last time it was actually in effect was 1978 by President Jimmy Carter, who actually turned 100 years old yesterday. The strike involved over 160,000 members of the United Mine Workers of America for the coal miner strike, and was seen as a potential threat to the nation's energy supply. Carter used the Taft-Hartley Act to order the workers back to their jobs, although the miners initially refused to comply, leading to further negotiations. I don't think Biden's going to be able to enable the Taft-Hartley Act, especially because I think we're going to get a deal soon, so I don't think he wants to get that serious about it. But if we don't get a deal for like 3 weeks, that's going to have horrible implications for the market. And then you got a couple weeks till the election. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where it's like a deal needs to get done, because I don't think Biden's going to come out and do it. And I think if he's forced to do it right before the election, it kind of doesn't make any sense. It's very weird. So I would imagine we get a deal done soon. I don't think we're going to go back to 1978 and deploy that type of law like we did with the coal miners. But it's one of those still unknowns that exists in the month of October, along with all the Middle Eastern instability. And that's what's leading to some of the volatility that we're seeing so far already in October. Do you think the market pumps when the deal gets done? Well, the market hasn't really taken a big hit since the deal, right? Like S&P fell from 575 right now to 567, down about 1.2%. Like it's, yeah, I think in general, yeah, the market will like it. I just don't think the market also has taken that big of a hit because the market hasn't priced in some dramatic decline based on the workers continue to be on strike. So hopefully, by Friday we get a headline that it's done. If not, then hopefully by Monday. If not, then it's going to take another, if we don't get a deal by Friday, that'll be officially a week. If we don't get a deal by next Friday, that'll be 2 weeks, and that's not good. And so I imagine at least by next Friday, we probably have some deals, if not by tomorrow, to get some stuff done. Let's talk about HIMSS. So HIMSS is down right now 12%. That's a pretty aggressive decline. The headline that's getting HIMSS down right now, which I don't know, you guys can help me try to understand this, but I don't. Biden also doesn't want to lose the union vote. That's also very true. I mean, that's I think going into another election, he definitely doesn't want to lose that vote, and that's probably another reason he's not getting super aggressive on this. But I also think if they're able to resolve it in a couple of days, if not at least a week, then maybe you don't need to go through all of that right now. So the FDA said Eli Lilly's weight loss drug is no longer in shortage. That is why HIMSS is down 12%. The US FDA announced that Eli Lilly's blockbuster weight loss drug, I'm not even going to try to say it, which is sold for diabetes and weight management, is no longer in shortage. Though local shortages may still occur as supply moves through the chain, Lilly has ramped up production to meet surging demand. Now, you may be asking yourself, wait a second, why is HIMSS down, based on this news? Like, why is Eli Lilly up and why is HIMSS down? Well, if there is not a massive shortage of Ozempic, then Eli Lilly theoretically should be able to sell more of it through their distribution channels, direct to the consumer, through all their subsidiaries, and technically reduce some of the costs because they don't need to upcharge because they have plenty of supply. HIMSS is offering an alternative to Ozempic, which is like still Ozempic, but it's like an off-brand version of it. Theoretically, from what I've heard, it works the same as Eli Lilly's version of it, but it's just cheaper. That's why the market gave HIMSS like a 30-40% bump over the past couple months, because they were like, wow, the GLP market, I think Goldman Sachs estimated is going to be $200 billion by 2030, which is insane. That's how much people are taking this drug. And as a result of that, if it's going to be so high and HIMSS gets a small market, a percentage of it, again, HIMSS is basically a small cap. It's a $4 billion company. Then that's very bullish for HIMSS. If HIMSS is not going to get a big percentage of that, I think that's why the market has taken them down. Now, do they deserve to be down 12% simply because Eli Lilly has more supply and they can handle all the demand, therefore leading to people not choosing HIMSS to get some of that Ozempic for their needs? I don't know if it deserves to be down 12%. I think the earnings will show us how much of an implication it has. Remember, HIMSS is not a weight loss company. HIMSS is Hims is a lot of other things than weight loss, and weight loss just came into the fray a couple months ago, and that's what gave it the surge, which is good. It's a new vertical that they expanded into, but the market's now treating them as a pure weight loss company, and they're taking away their weight loss premium, or giving them more based on headlines around GLP and Ozempic. So it's very prone to the same type of stuff that Novo Nordisk or Eli Lilly has to deal with as well. And so that seems like it's the issue that's happening right now. Ramu says, I believe it would be a licensing issue based on available supply. You might be right on that. I haven't looked at that perspective, but that could be the case. If they have so much more supply, then it ends up being a licensing issue, and then Hims just doesn't have as much supply to serve to their customers as well. My perspective on this is that, hey, if there is so much supply, you don't need to go to Hims for an alternative, because the actual producer of it has enough, which means they can reduce the cost, which means the differentiation, which the only differentiation was cost for Hims, kind of goes out the window. And it's not that exciting then to use Hims versus Eli Lilly. And so that's what we're seeing right now. Bitcoin under 60K, of course. Why not? Of course, Bitcoin's under 60K. We'll talk about Bitcoin in a bit, but why is Bitcoin tanking right now, dude? Why 12 minutes before we open the market down 2.6%? I have no idea why that's happening. Stock market news, shout out to him. He said, can't Hims no longer even sell the weight loss drug? See, I'm not sure about that. Maybe that's a particular nuance of this, which is getting Hims to get hit right now. That is potentially something that's happening. But from my understanding, they're still able to sell it. It's just the demand for them should probably go down if there is plenty of supply. So see, here's one person saying this is the difference, right? So the market's taking Hims down based on this news, but the FDA has now declared that the trizepatide shortage is resolved. Hims is down 10% after hours due to this. This person says Hims doesn't offer trizepatide. They offer semaglutide, which you can see is still in shortage. And again, if it's in shortage, that's a good thing for Hims because they are able to offer it, which means they're able to capture that demand. So if that's the case, this is a complete mispricing. Again, I don't know enough about Hims to say, oh, the market's completely stupid on this. They got it wrong, which happens a lot of times, right? The market gets it wrong. But if the market literally is taking Hims down for a drug they don't even sell based on headlines around it being in shortage or not being in shortage, then like the market totally has this wrong, and this dip theoretically will be eaten up once people figure this out. I don't necessarily know. And if I was deep into Hims, I would try to figure this out immediately, because if you can, then that's a dip opportunity. And that's where it gets really exciting to be an investor, dude. Like when Robinhood got the Wells notice from the SEC back in May, and they went from 18 to 16. Like, you know, if you're into the stock and you understand the company and you like quickly figure out, is this a big deal or not? That was easy by the dip. Within 30 minutes, went right back to 18. And so it'll be interesting. Hims basically same thing, 18 to 16, quite literally the same situation right here. If it comes right back to 18, Bitcoin recovering back to 60,000 in a matter of 2 minutes. That was weird. So went right below, then came right back. If Hims recovers this morning as the market opens, that means that most people realize this wasn't as big of a deal. You got a little bit of a green candle right there, 1674. It bottomed at 1640. So we'll see how that plays out when the market opens. But if this is an information imbalance and the market has this wrong and they're just overreacting, then this could be a pretty decent dip opportunity if you are into Hims. But I think you have to know that in the context of the drugs. Amit, will you be streaming the Tesla event on 10/10 if there is one? So there's definitely a Tesla event, and yes, I'll be streaming it. It'll be like 2:30 for me in India, but I will make sure to stream this event. It'll be 2:30 in the morning. So yes, we will definitely be streaming that Tesla 10/10 event and make sure that we see what's going on with Elon. Speaking of Tesla, I mean, let's take a little look at Tesla. We got 10 minutes until the market opens. Tesla right here, down a little bit, down another 1.63%. So two things that came out yesterday around Tesla. I posted this yesterday. Maybe it's a little bit of a stretch. It might be, but like still, that's like, it's, I mean, you have to stretch sometimes when you're interpreting what could happen here. McDonald's just posted a bag with 10/10 on it, and Elon Musk followed the senior marketing director of the company. And so that led a lot of people to thinking, well, wait a second. Are they doing is a robo-taxi going to deliver me my Big Mac? Is that what's going on? Are they announcing a Uber Eats competitor in this 10/10 event? Or is Optimus going to be flipping burgers? Like, there was so much speculation. And look, at the end of the day, speculation is speculation. It's fun to speculate because if we're not going to be creative and imaginative on these events, then, you know, like, what's the point of even having these events? in all reality, so this chair in the background is from a famous Twitch streamer named Kai Cenat, and they're likely doing a brand collaboration with that Twitch streamer. There's a world in which the brand collaboration is with the Twitch streamer and with Tesla, and all three of them are in on it together, maybe. But in all likelihood, it's probably just a collaboration. And I think the McDonald's guy, the reason Elon followed him is because he's smart, because the McDonald's people know that 1010 is going to be a big event. So they probably scheduled their brand collaboration with the influencer on 1010 to kind of tap into basically what I said yesterday. Oh, are they working with Tesla? And that's get people talking about McDonald's. And it's good. It's genius marketing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Tesla and McDonald's are working together. Charging network. Yeah, a lot of people thought, hey, is the charging network just going to expand to every McDonald's location? Remember, McDonald's is more of a real estate company than it is a burger company. And so you've got a lot of real estate to be able to put in charging networks. There's so many different theories you can take with McDonald's. It's a consumer staple that is just like a brand that if Tesla was able to get as a partner would be a big deal. But I don't know if that's the case. Also, Elon responded to them. That's another thing that got people speculating. Elon did the laughing emoji underneath their picture. Yeah, right there. So Elon actually responded to it. Some people thinking, okay, so Elon's responding. He's following the marketing director. Like, is there something here? Or is Elon just like taking us down his ride and getting people to imagine things that could happen or things that cannot happen? If I had to guess, I would say there's probably not a collaboration. It seems more like a streaming thing, but there is a world in which I could see a collaboration very easily. Like, even if it's in one city, hey guys, you can open up your robotaxi app, you can go to McDonald's, there's this certain section, you can order something, and like, even if it's for like one town, if that's happening, I feel like that would be huge. But we'll see on 1010 if that actually ends up being what happens. It's fun to speculate, even if it might not happen. Now, here's the other thing that was crazier. All right, someone DM'd me this, and there was some math here that I thought was really interesting. So Tesla Q3 deliveries expectations were 463,900. They came in at 462,890. When you subtract those two numbers, you get 1,010, aka 1010. I think this is completely a coincidence. There is absolutely no way that Elon legit made the delivery numbers so he could put in these Easter eggs of 1010. But like, it is kind of fun to speculate. Again, it's fun to speculate this. Do you guys remember? Okay, let's see how many OG Tesla people we have in the chat. Here's a question. This is how we're going to know if you're an OG Tesla person. Do you remember right before Elon got into Tesla got into the S&P 500, Elon posted this cryptic tweet about the S&P 500 with a spoon involved in it? Do you guys remember this tweet? I wasn't even big into Tesla at the time, but that was still a cryptic tweet. It was like, if you took the letters of it, he posted a picture of a spoon. It like spelled out S and P. That was it, S and P. Do you guys remember this? I know someone remembers this. If you put the tweet together, it was S and P, something like that. And that was like months before he got into the S&P 500, or Tesla got into the S&P 500. So Elon loves playing these games. He loves having fun with this stuff. And it's just kind of, it makes it kind of a little bit more fun to speculate on it, right? But if there's not a McDonald's collaboration, then we're probably going to see, something more sophisticated launch just based on Tesla's car. Gene Munster yesterday came out. Let's actually listen to him. He said, don't expect any numbers. And that was a little, or don't expect any details. And that actually was a little, I didn't like that. I want to get details from this event. I don't want there to not be details, but Gene said, yeah, details. And if we don't get details, I don't know if the street's going to love it. If the street tanked Tesla 5% on 1,000 delivery miss, I don't know if they'll like it if we don't have any deliveries. Here's what Gene said yesterday about the Tesla event.
The cheaper model that we're just talking about, I think that they'll have a robo van. We'll call that something that's way off. And then of course, the robo taxi. So I'm going to this thinking we'll have three models. I do agree with Phil that next week is going to probably be light on details. If you just look at the setup of the event, the number of people that will be there, this is not analysts. We
cannot be light on details, dude. It has been years for FSD. We need the details. In my opinion, he needs to really announce a timeline and specific metrics. It cannot just be, oh, here's the robotaxi and then it goes away for 3 years. I really feel like we need a timeline and specific details.
Investors with their laptops, this is essentially a launch party. And so you can imagine Elon getting up there, talking in kind of a very high level and not giving much substance around details. The one detail that I'm going to be hyper focused on is that cheaper $25,000 car when they expect to ramp production. And I just want to kind of put one thread through why this is important for next year, is that the street's looking for growth to go from essentially 7% in the most recent quarter to 12% next year. To get to that 12%, you essentially need to have that cheaper model starting to ramp in the middle of the year. If you look at historically, the gap between when they announce a vehicle to when it actually becomes available would suggest it's going to be late in 25 or early 26. And so we could be shaping up for a little bit of an air pocket, still believe we're going to get back to growth, but I think investors should have their kind of their eyes clearly on the timing of this new vehicle, because it's going to impact delivery growth next year.
So the 12% growth number you're talking about is 12% in deliveries or 12% in revenue? Because I would imagine the more models you're launching and trying to ramp, the thinner the margins will be. And that could be an issue.
Yeah, but 12% was in terms of deliveries. And I think the street's starting to factor in some of that cheaper model.
All right. So it's all right. It's baked into revenues, it's baked into profits, it's baked into margins.
And yeah, and you could see if that timing gets slipped. I'm a big believer in Tesla. I think that growth, deliveries growth will ramp into the 20%, but I just think people should have a level head in terms of what 25 looks like.
Gene, it's Tim. So again, around gross margins, 14.6 is the number I see being talked about. What do they have to do to get the street excited that you're not seeing this erosion? And is there any expectation that that could be a surprise?
We're still in the transition period. I think this is an important quarter, the September quarter, because we finally returned to growth after 6 months of declining deliveries. So that's an important part. And I think that lays the groundwork for us to have some improving margins. But as long as they kind of stay stable, I think it will give investors, of course, Tesla investors are notorious for having a long-term view. And if they can keep that stable right around that 14, 15% and keep some optimism around these products coming out mid to late next year, I think that that's enough. If that margin declines, then of course it's going to be a whole different conversation around the stock.
So again, dude, either we're getting real details or we're not. Dan says, Amit, Elon has always been super wrong with his timeline, so why would anyone care now and believe the guy? 100% sell the news type of event. You might be right, Dan. You might be right. Or he might actually announce something that changes everything. And then, it's like, I don't know. I get historically it's been sell the news and that yeah, 100% agree with that. It has been. But what if this time they actually show off some real details and it's like legit? So I don't like that Gene's saying that, hey, it's going to be light on details, because I don't think Tesla can afford. We already know the Q3 earnings are going to suck given the delivery numbers were not high on the levels that they need to be, and the margins probably took a hit. So it's going to be narrative, it's going to be story. And hopefully 1010 has a really, really strong story and some details to get investors continued to be excited. All right, here we go. October 3rd, Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Tesla at 245, down about 1.59% of the day. We do have a green candle from the pre-market lows of 244 as we get into the open, but we are down about 1.5%. We'll go back to that. Robinhood 2250, down about 0.53%. Nvidia up 1.65%. We'll get some more coverage with what's happening with Nvidia and the announcement they made last night on Accenture, but Nvidia is green. Palantir, wow, 37.62. Not bad at all. We didn't get any insider selling yesterday. It seems like Peter Thiel is done with most of his insider selling. So I think that is kind of a tailwind at the end of the day. You don't have someone dumping 4 or 5 million shares a day, which is good. And again, Palantir continues to be resilient. We'll talk a little bit about the Palantir Tesla comparison that was brought up yesterday on the market open, because I did a Twitter post about that and I crunched some numbers. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of look at the numbers if Palantir ends up following Tesla in some certain respects. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Dell 114, they are up about 1%. Enovix was actually up 20% yesterday, down about 1% on the day, which is fair after you go up 20% yesterday. But Enovix is down a little bit. Intel's down about 1%. Enphase down 1%. S&P down about 25 bips. Lilium is up a little bit. Joby is down 4% after being up 20% yesterday on a $500 million investment from Toyota. Microsoft's up a little bit. Apple's down another 1%. Meta back to 569. Qs are why are the Qs at 479? So what's going on in the Mag 7? damn, Amazon. I had a feeling before I clicked on the Max 7 list that it would be Amazon, and it is indeed Amazon. So Amazon was 195 last week. It's 181, getting back to the same levels it was at towards the end of August. Why is it here? I think it's because of the port worker strike. I think that's what the market's pricing in for Amazon, because it's not AWS growth. It's not prime advertising. They got a ton of upgrades over the past couple of days around the idea that advertising is going to beat, especially OTT advertising. I think it's the port workers, and people are afraid, or the market's afraid, that they're going to have delays in shipments, which would be bad for their e-com business. Nvidia is getting some momentum, up 2%. Nvidia is doing something nice. Where's Palantir? Where's Palantir? Whoa, baby. Oh boy, Palantir heading up. Let's check the order flow on Palantir. Are we going to 38 today? Are we going to 38 today? I mean, it looks like the momentum is there, folks. $38 has 2,000 shares waiting. That's it. That's not a ton. Again, we got to have the volume to match it. Volume is kind of light. Volume is 2 million. And I know like that's not light for a normal stock, but that's a little light for Palantir. Usually it's closer to 5 million right now. So volume's a little bit light, but most of the volume seems to be buy side pressure. 38 doesn't have a massive wall. There's no like big scary type of resistance that's waiting here. Where's Rocket Lab? Is Rocket Lab moving too? Is Rocket Lab? Rocket Lab's up 1%. Okay, so Rocket Lab's up 1%. Palantir 37.88. Nvidia 121. You know, another reason Palantir is going up is probably, if I had to guess, the Nvidia partnership with Accenture. We'll talk more about that. But essentially, TLDR, Nvidia and Accenture. Accenture has like 30,000 consultants that are going to be using Nvidia's tech to like train to help further advance generative AI to all their clients. Basically, enterprise AI will have more adoption. Palantir, in my opinion, is the real enterprise AI winner. And so I think if the market's trying to like kind of read between the tea leaves, they're saying, okay, so if enterprise AI, because Nvidia and Accenture's partnership is going to keep going higher, then maybe Palantir should catch a bid off that. Palantir 3 cents away from 38. There you go, $38, folks. $38 on Palantir. It's been so long, and when I mean so long, it's been about a week since we've seen 38. But we are right back. Last time we hit 38 was September 23rd, so it's been about 10 days. 38 just missed us, bro. She missed us. She was like, you know, we were having too much fun with 37. She's like, you know what? We're going back to 38. Oh, wow. It's actually breaking above 38. It's breaking above 38, folks. Vlad did just tweet something about Robinhood. He just tweeted their Q3 highlights. We'll look at that in a second. And we'll see what Vlad tweeted. But look at that, 38.05 on the day. Doug says, beware of the double top. Okay, so this is important. If we hit, you guys see this chart right here? If we hit 38.25 and then get rejected, that is a double top. I mean, even right here, if we get rejected, it kind of looks like a double top, but 38.25 is that real level we got to get to and then get rejected. If we can break 38.25, there may be a chance to actually hold 38 today and get some momentum. Volume is only 3 million. That's not a lot of volume for Palantir. It's honestly not in the first couple of minutes. So the volume that's coming in is bullish volume, but it's not like a momentous volume. It's just volume that's leading to more people buying than selling. Palantir got price upgrades this morning. What price upgrades? If you have the price upgrades, put it in the chat, because I didn't see any price upgrades. Let me see if I can find them. Palantir 37.98, still holding that high 37. Robinhood 22.39. Enphase 108. S&P is up a little bit, down only 14 bips. For those that are just joining, jobless claims came in a little bit better than expected. Jobless claims came in at worse than expected. We had 5,000 more people than expected filed for unemployment. So 225,000 versus like 200,000 versus 220,000, which is not that significant in the grand scheme of like, you know, how they calculate it. So the market didn't really react too much to that. It's pretty much on trend with what it's been over the past couple of weeks as well. Palantir 37.80. All right, so got rejected at 38.09 so far. But this happens a lot of times with Palantir. It'll hit a new high. It'll get rejected within the first literally 5 minutes. It'll chill out a bit, and then it'll just revisit that. I mean, it's happened pretty much throughout the entire month of September, like quite literally throughout the entire month of September. That's how we got to 33, 34, 35, 36, 30. Like every time it was this little push and pull, but then we broke through the next level. So if we do that again, then maybe 38 is something that's stickier if we actually break up to that level. Wedbush, $45. Yeah, well, the Wedbush stuff came out a couple days ago, so that's not new news today. But yeah, Dan Ives did upgrade us to 45. So that's fine. Where's Tesla? Tesla's green? Let me see Tesla. Tesla. That dude, Tesla's barely green. Tesla's fighting for its green. It did fall to 238 in the pre-markets. Wow. It actually, at 5 a.m., it was at 238. I didn't even see that. Okay, so Tesla's green. It's fighting for its green, but it is green. So we do have some green momentum there. But it's got to hold on to that now. If it can get, if Tesla can reclaim 255, I think that would be really bullish. Palantir right back to 38. Look at that. So literally went all the way right back down after getting a new high, and now it's right back at the level. I wouldn't be surprised if we come right back down to 37.70, and then we go right back to 38.10, and we try to beat 38.10, and then make a chance to get through 38.25, and that would potentially lead us to maybe having a shot at closing above 38 later today. Where's HIMS? Did HIMS get hit as soon as the market opened? HIMS, nah, HIMS not really recovering yet. HIMS, we talked about why HIMS is down, but it's not really recovering. The GLP news seems to still be bearish so far by the market. Bitcoin 60,000. Robinhood went from 22.25 to 22.54, maintaining some momentum. I put out a very long post on Robinhood yesterday. Like when I mean very long, I mean like it was very long. It only took me like 20 minutes to write it up, but I'm not going to go through the entire post. I'll go through the conclusion of that post in just a second. But I basically projected Q3 28 days before they're going to reveal Q3. And the numbers are pretty decent while I was being very conservative. So we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, Robinhood right here at 22.50. Palantir again testing 38. The third time it's tested 38. And it's trying to get some buyers at 38 to just stay buying it at 38. But you do have sellers that offload right at that 38.05, 38.06 level. And it's got to get through that. Rivian, where's Rivian right now? Rivian is down 10.58, down about 0.5%. AMD is 162.74. AMD is up about 2%. Tesla goes back to being red. Rocket Lab down about 0.5%. Palantir right there, back again 38, back above 38. Nvidia still up 2%. Let's look at the Mag 7. Everything is red except Nvidia. Wow. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Apple, all red, slightly red, not crazy red. Tesla just barely going green, but Nvidia holding on to some of its green today. So let's go to the semis. If Nvidia's green, maybe the rest of the semis are green. The rest of the semis are mixed bag. Intel's green, SMCI is green, AMD's green, Dell is green, Micron's green, Marvell's down, Qualcomm's down, ASML's down, ON is down, and Lam Research is down. But some of the other ones are green. China correction. Yeah, China did correct this morning. I don't know if it's that big of a deal. I mean, China was up like 40% in the past couple of days. So people taking profits on China. I mean, like, yeah, people are going to take profits on China. Alibaba right here down about 3%. FXI, I would imagine, is down 3%. FXI is down 3.4%. Yeah, I don't think the China correction is that big of a deal. But it does show the volatility of it, right? I mean, if they turn off the money printer, if they stop stimulating for for the next couple of weeks or something, like they don't announce any new stimulus, maybe investors will be wondering what's going on. But I think they probably are going to keep stimulating, and the stimulus they've already done has led to a massive, massive gain. All of China is outperforming the United States, like in the past couple of days, which is crazy. So if you had done some fundamental due diligence around China before they announced stimulus, I mean, if you had just known, like, hey, there's a chance stimulus is coming in China and positioned yourself, you would have done really well. Chasing it, I still think you can do well, but I don't know if you're, it's the same type of risk reward versus if you positioned right before they engage in stimulus. Why is Palantir surging suddenly? So there's two reasons. Number one is the Nvidia partnership with Accenture, which basically is getting consultants in Accenture, which is one of the largest consulting firms, to implement Nvidia software and be able to have more generative AI sales in the enterprise. Remember, Accenture is a company that partners with other companies to be able to allow them to have innovative solutions to problems. Accenture did $1 billion worth of Gen AI consulting sales in the second quarter of this year. So if Accenture as a consulting firm is doing $1 billion off of generative AI solutions, you would imagine that a lot of these enterprises are searching for generative AI solutions. That, to me, and that partnership last night is what's getting the street to connect the dots and say, okay, so if Accenture, which by the way has a partnership with Palantir, I don't really think that partnership's resulting in anything material. I know for a fact PwC is selling Palantir's Foundry software. Why? Because CodeStrap says it every single day on Twitter. And he is actually in these meetings where he's convincing people to buy Foundry and then helping implement Foundry and AIP. I have never heard of an Accenture consultant, even on LinkedIn, talk about Palantir. So that partnership we had in 2022, I really don't think I don't think it's a thing. And that's normal. I mean, lots of times companies sign deals for the brand recognition and then nothing happens. So I don't really think Accenture is a real go-to-market for Palantir. However, if they're a go-to-market for generative AI more broadly, that means companies are searching for generative AI solutions more broadly. There you go, 38.15, a little bit of a breakout. And that means more demand should exist for Palantir. That means more demand should exist for Palantir. 38.22. All right, now you're getting, so now if we break 38.25, folks, that's the level we got to break from a month ago, not a month ago, 10 days ago, and try to make up some more momentum. So that's my analysis there. I really think it's based on generative AI in the enterprise is catching a bid because of the Nvidia Accenture partnership. Palantir is the generative AI solution. If that catches a bid, then Palantir should theoretically get even more demand. And that's where, when everyone says it's overvalued, I'm like, look, I don't disagree with you. However, if they grow into the valuation, like, you can't just complain that they're overvalued. Like, that's a lazy form of analysis at that point, even though I agree, valuation is stretched. But if they grow into it, we've seen that happen time and time again with other companies. Isn't Accenture part of the NHS deal? Yeah, but I don't know to what extent Accenture is actually helping implement Palantir's Foundry in the NHS. Like, I really don't know. And I think we need more details on that. Palantir passing 38.25. So that was the level back on September 23rd that we got rejected at. So let's see if we can maintain these levels, maybe break 38.30 and healthily get above that. But also, even if Accenture is helping Palantir with the NHS, that's just one part of the world that they're helping with. I mean, the generative AI market in the commercial enterprise sectors are way bigger than a healthcare solution in the UK. And that's where I would hope they had a go-to-market strategy like Accenture working with Palantir. I just don't believe that's actually happening right now. I know for PwC it's happening. For Accenture, I don't think it is. And if it's not, that's okay. But if Accenture is selling more AI in the enterprise, that is clearly more demand that enterprise want. They want something like an AIP. And that's where Palantir steps in. Nvidia right here at 122. Nvidia up almost 3%. So Nvidia getting some momentum. Palantir is at a 52-week high. Correct. Palantir just hit a 52-week high at 38.28 2 minutes ago. We get PMI in 2 minutes, folks. PMI in 2 minutes. That could have an effect on Palantir and the broader market. S&P Global Composite PMI is going to come out in 2 minutes. And then we get services PMI, factory orders, transportation, business activity. We get a ton of stuff at 10 a.m. So at 10 a.m., we're going to see a lot of stuff come in. But in 2 minutes, we should see Global Composite PMI. The street wants 54.4. Street wants 54.4. Last time we got 54.6. So we get above that number, then we should hopefully be still okay. Above 50 is still expanding, which is a good thing. Wow, 38.30. 38.30. That is above the 38.25 level. That is above the 38.25 level. I think Peter Thiel sold his shares to institutional investors, dude. Oh, by the way, you guys want to see something? You know how I've been on this kick over the past couple of days of like, oh, look, if you hate Peter Thiel selling, you can sell at a better price than him, which literally today you can sell at $1 of a price better than up from Peter Thiel. He sold at 37. You could sell at 38 right now. Take a look at this. Robinhood gives you the user data on what their clients, which are retail clients, are doing on their app. Take a look at this. Since September 25th, retail has net sold Palantir. Since September 25th, those are the red candles you see on the right-hand side of the screen. Retail has been selling Palantir with Peter Thiel. I think Peter Thiel and retail have been selling to, the market makers, to the JP Morgans, the Vanguards, the BlackRocks of the world. Like, I think all of those guys are buying Palantir and retail selling. Now, look, Robinhood's not conclusive of just retail because there's Schwab, Fidelity, there's all these other platforms. But Robinhood is somewhat of a measure of how much retail is buying or selling a certain stock, because Robinhood obviously has all retail. And so if retail's selling, if they're not buying at 38, 37, at least on Robinhood, that means they're taking profits, which is actually not a horrible thing to secure some profits. But if they're taking profits, they're selling it to someone, and maybe they're selling it to institutional investors. All right, we got rejected at 38.33, right at 38.20. PMI, what do we have? PMI came in at 54. That is lower than expectations. And global services PMI came in at 55.2. That is higher than expectations. How is the market reacting to that? Maybe that's the red candle we just saw on Palantir. Okay, we got some red candles on S&P. So PMI missed on manufacturing. It beat on services. Very slight miss and very slight beat. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They missed on services and they missed on manufacturing. I read it wrong. So services, the market wanted 55.4. They came in at 55.2. That's a miss. Manufacturing, they wanted 54.4. We came in at 54. That's a miss. So 2 misses on PMI. A little bit of a red candle there, but I don't know if the market cares that much. I mean, those are so insignificant in terms of the trajectory of those numbers and the, percentage increase or decrease, that I don't think the market cares too much about that. Look at Nvidia, 123 on Nvidia. Wow, 3.5%. Palantir right back to 38.25. So Palantir dipped to 38.17 right off that PMI number, and now it's rebounding right back to 38.25. Look at that, folks. I think it's the Nvidia partnership with Accenture. That's the only way to explain this, at least for now. That's my best way to explain the rally we're seeing. I don't really have any other of an explanation outside of that. And again, it makes sense if there's a lot of Gen AI demand in the enterprise. If the market, maybe the market's wrong on this, but if the market's perceiving Palantir as the winner of that demand, then boom, like that should be a tailwind for Palantir, even at these levels. Again, this is the thing about the valuation stuff. Even at these levels, even at these valuations, if Palantir can put up the growth, if they can put up the big daddy numbers, I mean, it's going to be a fun story. It'll be a fun one. Manuel says, I just bought Palantir puts at 37 just as a way to protect the gains on this October madness. Yeah, I don't hate that as either. You know, hedging is not a bad thing at all. So buying some insurance right here, just in case things go to the downside, that's not a bad idea at all. But dude, the resilience of this stock, I mean, like you just look at it and you feel like a parent who's proud, you know, like, you know, your kids when they're like, well, I don't have kids, but like, not that I know of. Anyway, that was a fun joke. But like, you know, if your kids are like at a basketball game and you see them working on the driveway every day on their free throws, and then they get fouled and then they make the free throw, and you know they put in the hard work to make that free throw. And like looking at Palantir feels like I'm looking at my child just like succeed in life after all the pain they went through to get to this level. And you know, it's doing its thing, dude. It's succeed. It's working. It's working. It's working to get there. 38.19 on Palantir. So let's talk about the Palantir Tesla comparison that we talked about yesterday. So yesterday, a couple of you guys in the chat, including our good friend Chris Patel, and then we'll talk about Japan because Japan did some bullish stuff yesterday, which also might be helping the market, said, hey, Palantir right now is Tesla in October of 2021. If you guys remember Tesla October 2021, that was a very, I mean, it wasn't a very toppy time. It was the top of Tesla, right? Around that $400 level, $414 level in 2021. So if some people are saying Palantir at 37.38 of October 2024 is Tesla at 400 October 2021, if you do the math based on how Tesla fell, that means by March of 2025 in the same time period, 5 months later, Palantir will be $22. First of all, if that happens, I know people are going to start selling certain parts of their life, maybe their liver, you know, whatever, to load up on more shares if that ends up happening, as long as it's a stupid reason for why it fell, not like some crazy, horrible macro reason for why it's, or like fundamental reason for why it's falling. But number two, I think there's a couple of nuances here. There's a lot of nuances. Palantir right now, 38.15. Number one, Tesla got to that valuation because interest rates were zero. Everyone forgets that. When Tesla pumped to 400, it was ZERP. It was a zero interest rate phenomena at the time. Palantir getting to 85 billion is during 5% rates. Tony says he will sell his child if Palantir is $22. Okay, don't sell your child, but like, I mean, you can consider it, but don't. No, I'm just kidding. So Tesla got its valuation, or you know, during 0% rates. Palantir gets its valuation during 5% rates, which means the bar to entry for commanding that big of a premium, aka 36 times price of sales, was higher for Palantir versus Tesla. Okay, Tesla fell from 400 to 270 as we went into a hiking cycle. Palantir is entering into a cutting cycle, which is a general macro tailwind. Like that is undeniable that we were super bearish in 2022 because we were raising rates. Now it's a lot more bullish because we're cutting rates. That doesn't mean we can't have a recession, but in general, there's a different macro tailwind. And then finally, the narrative around AI for Palantir, fundamentally different than the narrative around AI that we had for Tesla back in 2021. Palantir 38.30, right back to 38.30. There was zero narrative of AI in 2021. The narrative in 2021 was crypto, Web3, decentralized architecture, NFTs, buy a picture of a monkey for $7 million. That was the narrative that entire year. And I know a lot of people remember that. There was no GPUs, there was no LLMs, none of this stuff. Wow, look at Palantir trying to break 38.40. Look at that. Now things are fundamentally in a world that is placing the value on the next S curve of growth, which is not going to be crypto Web3 nonsense. It's going to be AI. And I think we have more than enough evidence to prove that the market feels there is actual ROI in that. So I think the sentiment is different. I think the valuation is harder for Palantir to get because interest rates are different. I think we have a cutting cycle we're getting into, which is different. And then I think Palantir's perception in the AI landscape is different than Tesla's because there was no AI landscape for Tesla back in 2021. All of that put together, could it fall back to 22? Sure. But does it need to go back to 22? Like Tesla fell all the way to 270 from 400? I don't think so. I don't think it has to fall to that level. Dell right here up 1.4%. Everything else is red. Look at that. The Qs are red right now. Meta's red. S&P is red. Palantir is green in the face of a decent amount of red. Palantir 38.40. There you go. 38.40 on Palantir. Rocket Lab is down 1%. Alibaba's down 3%. S&P down 30 bips. That's, 566. It is down a little bit right here. HIMS is still not recovering. Tesla tried to get a green candle to 249, right back down to 247. Palantir and Nvidia are the only green stocks, and AMD, that I'm really looking at right here. You got Oxy, that's a little green. Short QQQ is a little green. SMCI up 3% based on Nvidia. Riot, Bitcoin miners a little green. That's it. Snowflake's down. Costco's down. Netflix is down. MicroStrategy is down. Amazon's down. Cruise lines are down. China's down. Poet's down. PayPal's down. Everything else is down besides Palantir, AMD, and Nvidia. Those are the ones that seem to be gaining some momentum. Black Sky's up a little bit. Okay, good. Black Sky. That one's up, 12%? That one's up 9% right now. CrowdStrike, is CrowdStrike green? CrowdStrike is slightly green on the day, about 30 bips. ARM is up. ARM was up yesterday after hours as well. I don't know what sent ARM up. I feel like there was a headline on ARM, but ARM is up. Palantir right here, 38.39 right now. Spartacus says my Palantir calls from 2 days ago are almost at 50%. Look, when you make 50% in 2 days, that's also one of those things where you have to consider, hey, maybe I should take some profits on this one, right? It sucks to take profits when it's going super green, but that's something that's, a skill set everyone has to learn to an extent, including myself. But up 50% in 2 days is not easy, dude. Think about the amount of people on planet Earth that can take $1 and make 50% of that dollar in 48 hours. It's not a lot of people that can do that, bro. Definitely not a lot of people that can do that consistently. That's a hard thing to, I think it's always important to put that in perspective, because when you're in the stock market, you might think, oh, 50% is whatever. It's like, dude, 50% of your money in 48 hours? That's not an easy thing to do. And sometimes you just, you get the timing right and it ends up happening. Microsoft goes green. Meta goes green a little bit. Qs are still red. Spartacus says I'm scaling at 50, 75%, and 100%. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Especially if those are near dated calls. I think that's a great idea to scale out that way. Oh, so Jason figured out why $123 is the psychological level on Nvidia. He found that out last night. And it makes a lot of sense. The reason 123 is a psychological and very important technical level on Nvidia is because at $123, Nvidia is worth $3 trillion in market cap. That is why 123 has been so annoying for the past couple of months. It's like that number gets you at $3 trillion. And so breaking above that is very, very important for Nvidia. Wow, Palantir. Oh my God. Holy guacamole. Oh my goodness. 38.48. Resistance is not really there. There's 7,000 shares at 38.50. 7,000 shares is not a ton. At 39, there are 4,000 shares. Maybe a wall is going to pop up soon, but there's no wall that I'm looking at right now. At 39.15, there's 50,000 shares. But at 39, there's not really any shares. If we see a massive dump from here, then maybe it's insider selling. But I think insider selling is pretty much done. From what I read, Peter Thiel is done for the year in terms of selling based on his filings. And if that's the case, then it might have some room to just run. It might have some room. I was going to say, I was so close to selling covered calls yesterday. I was so close, I was like one swipe away from selling covered calls. And I didn't do it because you know what? I just don't trust it. I don't trust selling covered calls on this thing. I don't know that we got a good macro landscape. You have a good Q3 earnings. You just don't know how crazy things can get. Maybe you can run to 50 and then take a retrace all the way back to 35. That is very possible. Or maybe it runs 45 and it stays there for the next couple of months and just chills out there. Or maybe it collapses back to 30. I think there's a lot of possibilities here, but at the end of the day, it's look, it's up right now, and maybe we don't want to stop some of that momentum. I sold weeklies at 39.50. I don't hate that. It's, if that expires at 39.50 tomorrow is not easy to get to, but it is showing some really, if you sold 38s for Friday this week, look, you're underwater on those already, right? So it's covered calls are a little tough with Palantir right here at this level. Palantir's market cap now 86 billion. So we're basically $2 away from getting to a $90 billion market cap. I mean, what do you say? You know, it's fucking Palantir, baby. It's cool. It's cool. I mean, I think some of you guys might have missed the tweet I made the other day, but did you guys see what Forbes did on their thumbnail for their YouTube video about billionaires in 2024? Or the title was How America's Richest Billionaires Made Nearly $1 trillion in a Year. I made a video a month ago. It was a 30-minute video. And the thesis of that video was that the media attention is going to compound on Palantir, and that is going to be good for investors. Tell me 2 years ago if you think Alex Karp would be the ace in the middle of this thumbnail along with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Like most people still don't know who Karp is. Like they know Elon, they know Zucks, they don't know who Karp is. They're probably wondering, who is that guy in the middle? And it's one of those things where it's like, dude, Forbes acknowledging Karp and putting him in the middle, this is the type of analysis that's like important to understand when you have a long-term thesis where it's like, hey, maybe it's not just only about the numbers right now. It's also about what is the media thinking? How are they conglomerating their narratives? For a Forbes editor to make that decision, it means they have to care about Alex Karp. They have to know him. They have to care about Palantir. And they have to think that it's reasonable enough to mention him in a video where most people probably still don't know about Alex Karp. And so that stuff I think still is very, very important at the end of the day. 38.49 right here, up 2.64% on Karp. Mark says on Karp, we're not up 2.6% on Karp, but Karp is helping us go up 2.6% on Palantir. Mark says, Amit, how did you learn to do your research on the market? Dude, it's quite literally like just being curious. I mean, there's no special sauce to this. Like it's like, if I'm curious, I will go to ChatGPT. If I'm curious, I will watch a video. If I'm curious, I will read an article, and that's it. And then I have like, some software that I use to like look at numbers and metrics and all that stuff. And then I read a lot of how is Howard Marks analyzing companies? What does Warren Buffett look like? Like, what are the key things he looks at? What's a moat? Why did Warren Buffett say you got to have a moat for a company if you're trying to make a fundamental investment? Like, I try to study what other investors have done, but there's no special sauce. There's just being curious. And that's what happened with Palantir back in 2022. I was just really curious. And I watched every single interview I could find on this company. The interview that most people haven't watched that everyone needs to watch if you're a Palantir investor is Steph Cohen in Stanford. This is one of the only like public lectures he's done, but he's one of the original co-founders of Palantir. It's a 50-minute lecture that he gives at Stanford. He graduated Stanford, and I'll put it in the chat right now. These are the types of things I think a lot of people need to look at deeper to do research, right? It's stuff that the rest of the world isn't looking at to help you develop your thesis. But yeah, it's just curiosity. That's it. There's nothing special to it. I don't have any special magic formula. I go to Google or ChatGPT, I type in questions, I get answers, and then I just read, and that's it. And then I look at numbers, and if I don't know how to read, I don't know what a goodwill impairment charge is, right? On a balance sheet, I will go to Google and be like, what is a goodwill impairment charge? Okay, why did Teladoc take a $1.5 billion goodwill impairment charge? Why are they down 40%? Because they did that, which happened in 2022. Like all these things that you see in the market, you just like get curious about it. You ask questions, you figure it out, and you kind of train your brain as if it's an LLM, and start to get a little bit smarter about things that are happening. Nvidia at 123.7. So Nvidia breaking out right here. 124 would be amazing for Nvidia. But that is now above a $3 trillion market cap for Nvidia. What else? Is Karp the reason I can retire? No way. Palantir's at 38.63. Oh my God, we touched 38.63. I leave Palantir for 2 seconds. And it's like, don't leave me. Keep staring. Palantir just wants the attention, dude. She's the hot chick at the bar. She wants to be the center of attention. Right now, she's like, you cannot leave us. Someone just posted Palantir institutional ownership now sits at 44% via Bloomberg. I think that's up like a percentage point, although I think that's a little light. I would expect us to get closer to 50 by the end of the year. Hopefully, at least get closer to 47. But there you go. There's the Bloomberg terminal. Number of institutions 1,610. Or sorry, 1,583. So that's actually down about 1%. Change in institutions is about 53, and then percentage of shares held is 43%. Most of the top geographic ownership for Palantir is United States, United Kingdom, Japan, Switzerland, Norway, Luxembourg, Canada, and Hong Kong. That's what you got for Palantir. Okay, we have a ton of macro data. We have a ton of macro data for 10 a.m. Let's see if that's going to affect the market. So ISM services PMI came in at 54.9 versus 51.7. That's good. Hold on, the market should like that. Where's the S&P? Yeah, look at that. S&P is like very close to going green. Market show. That's a big beat on services. That's a huge beat. That's 3 points of a beat. Factory orders down 0.2%. That's a miss. Factory orders ex transportation, that's down negative 0.1%. That's a small miss. ISM business services activity, that's at 59. The market thought it would be 53. That's a beat. ISM services unemployment, the market thought it would be 50. That's at 48. That's a miss. Services new orders, market thought it would be 52. That's at 59. That's a beat. ISM services prices, market thought it would be 56.3. That's at 59.4. That's a beat. Dude, we got like 4 beats on PMI. That's bullish. That's not bearish at all. That's why Palantir's look at that. There you go. Market's green. If we can get back to 570, that's really green. Palantir at 3870. See, again, I leave for 2 seconds and it says you can't leave me, and it just goes higher. Yeah, Palantir should be green on that PMI data. Yeah, that PMI data is super bullish. Like, that's good. That is like not recessionary PMI data. Beating on all 4 of those metrics by like 3 or 4 points, that's not bad at all. That is not bad at all. And so there you go. Nvidia's up 4%, Palantir's up 3.2%. Gregory says, sorry, Amit, hard to type this on the phone, but I'm learning from a guy named Amit on YouTube. Well, look, I mean, I definitely learn from YouTubers as well, right? Like, if I need to learn about something, I think when you learn from a YouTuber, it's all about not like trusting whatever that YouTuber says. It's just about using them as a source of like inspiration for ideas to do your own due diligence. So I think everyone is mature enough to not blame someone else for like buying a stock if like they recommended or if they talked about it. But it's about, okay, this person talked about it in this way. They have this certain thesis on this company. Let me go do some deep digging myself. And that's what I think YouTube should be as a form of inspiration. Palantir right here, 3872, but we are seeing that PMI data effect. Are the Qs green on this? Are the Qs green? Yep, the Qs are green, 483. Qs are up 30 bips. Qs are green right here. ARM is green, up 2.39%. Nvidia up 3.9%, 123. CrowdStrike's up. Black Sky is up 16%. Why is Black Sky up 16%? Did they get a deal? I think Palantir still owns a little bit of Black Sky. I could be wrong. This is a geospatial intelligence company that was actually really critical in the Ukraine-Russia stuff when it first happened in 2022. I don't see any headlines on Black Sky, but there has to be a headline for it to be up 16%. I would imagine there's some headline. Wow. See, I leave Palantir for 2 seconds to look at Black Sky, and it goes from 3870 to 3880. I'm telling you, she wants to be the center of attention. Like, she can't handle when you give attention to other people. She just can't handle it. She can't do it. 3880. All right. So 39. What's the resistance at 39? Let me see. It's like 4,000 shares. It's not a lot. What's the volume? Volume's 12 million. Black Sky got a $300 million deal. All right. Well, that'll do it for you. That'll do it for you. That'll get it up 15%. Dude, this is a big move on Palantir, bro. Up 3%. That means now this month it's up 20, or the past month it's up 29%. Past week it's up 4%. Year to date, Palantir is up 130%. Where is Nvidia? I think Nvidia is 150. Nvidia is 150. Okay, so we're 20% lagging behind Nvidia. But there you go. How do you see the amount of shares at a resistance line? So you have to have an order book flow. And that order book flow, I use Robinhood. I pay $5 a month and I get like the access to it. There's a lot of different order book flows from NASDAQ. I think we're about to hit 3890. I think she's going to try. And that lets you know how many shares are sitting at a certain level that are waiting to be limit sold, that would need to be bought. So if there's 20,000 shares sitting at $39, that means someone at $39 needs to buy 20,000 shares. 3892, there you go. And that allows us to move on to the next level, because now you're seeing some more momentum as people are buying the stock at a higher price. Thiel sold early. Yeah, maybe Thiel's punching the air right now. He's like, damn it, should have waited a day. Again, 39 doesn't have resistance to it. It's a couple thousand shares. Can you explain that a little bit more? Yeah. So like if at $39 I'm looking at right now, there's 686,852 shares, right? So that means $39 times 6,852. There's $267,000 worth of shares that need to be bought, meaning someone or a collection of people need to buy 6,550 shares right at $39. They need to pay $39 a share because they're buying it from someone who's selling it to them. And that gets us over that hump, and we get into 39.01, 39.02, and you start forming a new level for the stock. So Palantir over the past month has had many walls stopping it from getting it to certain levels, 50,000, 100,000, 300,000 shares sitting at a certain price. And those walls have been broken really for the past 7 months. I remember on this channel, on Palantir's Q4 earnings the day after, we had Derek call in and he bought 50,000 shares sitting at 23, and we broke that and we got to 23.50 because at 23 there was like 50,000 shares that we were staring at for like an hour almost. So literally, like Derek called up and he just bought those 50,000 shares. So literally anyone can break the wall if you buy the shares sitting there. But you know, you need more buyers, and it gets harder as the price goes up if you have more buyers, right? But for Palantir, it's been decent this year. Nvidia now 124. That's incredible. Bitcoin 60,700. That's good for Bitcoin. Robinhood 2262. S&P 569. S&P goes green. ARM is at 141. QQQ at 484. And then Palantir right here at 3889 right now. It can also be spoofing. That's correct. The order book flow that I look at is probably not accounting for all of the dark pool orders and things that go on behind the scenes. I mean, Peter Thiel probably could have been selling his 4 million shares for the past couple of days in the dark pool, so we might have not even seen it. Most likely that's what happened. So it's not perfect, but it gives you some understanding of like where the resistance is. But it's not perfect. Where's SoFi? Is SoFi green today? SoFi is green. All right, we got a little bit of green on SoFi. SoFi will have earnings October 29th. That was announced. October 29th we'll have SoFi earnings. And we'll see what happens with SoFi. AMD at 166, Palantir at 38.85 right now. Amit, I'm riding with you on these SoFi spreads. Wallaha awaits us, brother. I mean, look, I think the risk reward on them are pretty high. We'll see if SoFi can break out of its 3-year downtrend. Then I think it can have some momentum, but we'll see. Just got to see how they execute, and if they can, then that'll help. S&P at 569, Palantir getting a little bit of a red candle right there at 38.87. Rocket Lab down about 1%, Tesla still down about 0.5%, and then S&P at 569. All right, let's go to Dan Ives. This is what he said on the Nvidia partnership and why he was bullish on the Nvidia partnership with Accenture, and what it means for enterprise AI adoption. So let's get his perspective. I think this is the reason why Palantir is getting some momentum here today.
Especially because Jensen Huang literally said now is the beginning of this next wave, that he thinks this is going to be the biggest wave, this enterprise adoption. And then as that rolls out, you're starting to talk about industrial AI, which we mentioned it before the break. Honeywell CEO said to me yesterday, Vimal Kapoor said to me yesterday, it's the difference between predictive versus deterministic AI, two very different models, two very different outcomes.
$1 trillion of AI CapEx, we believe, in the next 3 years. And I think what Patrick talks about is a great point. We are just in the first inning of where AI is going. But partnerships like this, I think there's a watershed partnership. And I think what you heard from the godfather of AI, Jensen, what Julie talked about, this is now, it's the multiplier. For every dollar spent on NVIDIA chip.
Okay, we got to go back to him because Palantir is really trying to push right now. Palantir is really trying to push 38.95. Oh boy, Palantir is trying to push it. She is trying to push it at these levels, dude. There is some resistance. I mean, there's a couple thousand shares on every cent higher. At 39, there's 8,000 shares. So there might be a little bit of resistance there. We'll go back to them, but she is absolutely pushing. Nvidia is also flying as well right now.
When there's an $8 to $10 multiplier across the rest of tech, infrastructure services, you talk about industrial, sovereign AI, it is just the start. It continues to be our view. It's 9 p.m. in that AI party that goes to 4 a.m. And I think what we see here is just starting to play out.
So Dan, you can kind of see what Jensen and Nvidia are doing, this pace, yearly pace on the platforms and technology, these partnerships throughout different areas of the ecosystem that don't just involve, hey, here's some chips, but really building on top of our technology. Is it coming down to an eventual zero-sum situation where Nvidia pulls away, and when they win big, everybody else, at least who competes with them on the chip side, thinking AMD and Intel, are at bigger risk of losing?
Yeah, no doubt. Lisa Su clearly watching this interview and everyone across the industry, because right now they're the only game in town. They're just going to continue to expand that moat. It's the Oracle model, it's the Microsoft model. And I think what they're trying to do is just gain more and more share when you talk about that revenue opportunity. And I think that's what Jensen's going after. I think the big question today is, we talk about this $1 trillion of AI CapEx, fourth industrial revolution playing out, but it is going to be a Game of Thrones battle with other big tech players, because Microsoft, Google, Amazon, everything that you talk about in the show, this is now starting to get into that second, third, fourth derivative that I know, Patrick and myself, we talk about a lot.
And Patrick, I mean, I'm just going to stick with this.
Dan is bullish. Dan is obviously very, very bullish. Pounder getting rejected a little bit at that 38.95 level. So it seems like the sellers were too aggressive right there. And now trying to hover above 38. Again, we haven't seen 39 since February of 2021. The all-time high close was, or all-time high was 45 on January 27th, 2021. And we closed at 39, which was our highest close ever in January of 2021 as well. So if we close at 39 today, that'll be the highest. That'll match the highest close we've ever had. And if we hit 45, that's obviously hitting the all-time high. The thing about this as well is the volume shelf resistance on Palantir, because we're now we did hit 38.98, so we were very close to 39 a couple minutes ago. The volume shelf resistance is starting to be minimal because we're now in this new price discovery phase, and there's not that much volume in the 39, 38 levels because there hasn't been for more than 3 years. And so you get price discovery, you get people trying to figure out if this is a good price to allocate capital to. You get institutions thinking, hey, maybe we need to increase our exposure, and you just have a bunch of stuff happens that could happen theoretically to push it even higher. Getting a bit of a red candle right there. Nvidia as well, getting some red candles. See, it's like clockwork. Look at that, 124 to 122.9 on Nvidia. Palantir, same thing. Palantir really moving with Nvidia. Palantir right here, 38.98 to 38.57. Look at how similar those charts are. 38.98 to 38.52. Nvidia, 124 to 122.9. Almost identical. They both fall by 1%, even though they're still up 3% on the day. Oxy is green, so you just got a green candle on Oxy. Oil prices currently right now are up 2.84%, which is not the best thing in the world that we want to see, given that they were at $68 a couple of days ago. But oil is up, which is probably helping Oxy right now get some more green. If Nvidia can recover back to 124, I think Palantir makes another run at 39, but it's moving very similarly. Even this little green candle we're seeing on Palantir, if you look to Nvidia, there's a green candle right there. I mean, it's almost exactly the same. I had a friend call me up last week when Palantir ran to 37 something, 37.25 or whatever. He was up $100 million on his Palantir. I'm not joking. He was up $100 million on his Palantir. And he said, Amit, what do I do? And I said, you're going to have to make a decision, buddy. You're going to, he was thinking of selling, but the tax hit would be ridiculous. So he was like, there's no point of selling. And so he didn't end up selling. And then I told him about covered calls, and he was like, all right, well, I could make a couple million here, but his portfolio moves up 10 to 15 million every single day. So a couple million in covered calls was not that attractive to him, which is crazy. I was like, dude, you can make 2.5 million, right? He's like, 2.5 million is not that big of a deal. I was like, all right. So I guess this is how rich people think when you get to that level. But he should be up another couple million today, and he should be closer to 105 million based on this price action with Palantir. And I know he's looking at his gains right here, and he's really thinking if he should sell. And I think a lot of people are thinking that right now. But even in the face of this and the crazy gains that I know a lot of people have, the trend is your friend. And the uptrend right here, as Richard says, do not interrupt a compounding machine. You don't interrupt a compounding machine. And it's compounding, baby. It is really, really compounding. So you guys got to remember, for everyone saying sell, there's there's a big tax implication when you have that much of capital gains. That's why a lot of these insiders have to sell even more shares when they take profits, because they have to pay for the taxes on the profits. It's like if 40% of your profits get wiped out, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if maybe I just wait, you know, and then take profits when it's like $50, which I think all of us believe Palantir one day will be $50, then it's a less of a tax hit, especially when you're dealing with that type of money. But still, even to someone who's very wealthy, looking at that much money that they're up on a single stock, it's got to be one of those things where you're like, holy crap, dude. And he's not alone, dude. I remember in 2022, that's when I really started like putting out content on the YouTube channel. I met a lot of people, even if it was just through Zoom calls, that I met this one guy who sold his med tech company for like 30 million bucks. And he just started buying a ton of Palantir. And he had, I think when I met him, he had like 60,000 shares at like $12. And that's when I started noticing, oh, there's like real whales out there that have real money that are like, out of all the stocks that are red in 2022, because 2022 was a horrible year, they're picking Palantir as their horse, you know? And a lot of people that did that, I mean, they've massively outperformed by other stocks in the market. Why sell for 100 million when you can sell for $1 billion in a few years? Well, that's the logic, dude. Either we're being super euphoric right now and we're saying, well, why sell at 35 if it's going to go to 45 or it's going to go to 50 and we're going to get humbled, or like actually no, legit, like this is the journey that it's on, and there's no point of selling right now when you could sell for broader gains. Switzerland has no tax on gains. Does Ireland also have a capital gains tax? Ireland capital gains tax. Because Ireland has 33% of a capital gains tax. Huh. Switzerland has no capital gains tax. Wow. Yeah. Switzerland, you are completely exempt from these taxes as long as certain criteria are met. Damn, dude. I mean, now I guess we know why people put money into the Swiss ecosystem. Remember that scene from Wolf of Wall Street where they like literally fly to Switzerland with all the money taped up on his like chest going into the airplane? Seems like that's where a lot of money ends up going. For corporations, a lot of it goes to Ireland because they have, you know, a lot of good corporate tax rules. I didn't know that. 0% capital gains in Swiss. That's not bad. UK is 24%. Romania is 10%. In the United States, it's 20% on long term, 15% on short term, but it gets added to your income bracket. So it's not. That's why I'm saying it'll be like closer to 40%, because if you make the highest level of income federally, you know, it just gets attached to the amount of income you make, and then boom, you know, it gets a lot higher. Alex says this reminds me of Tesla in 2021. It might be, but we talked about why it's a totally different macro environment, and it might not be. 3868 right here on Palantir. Nvidia as well. Where's Nvidia? 122.82. If it's not Tesla in 2021, and there's like I'm not saying there can't be a correction here. I'm just saying that Tesla fell 35%. Palantir 35%. You're talking about low 20s. Again, I just feel like there's so many dip buyers. Now, granted, if we get into a recession, which is what happened in 2022, then all the dip buyers go away, right? Because everyone's like scared. If we don't get into a recession, could we see a pullback? Of course. But is it a 30, 40, 50% pullback that typically happens during like a real recession? I don't know, dude, because there's going to be so many people that are ready to buy it at 33, 34, 32, 31, 27, 28, 26. Like there's just going to be so many buyers that step in and say, all right, I get to increase my exposure here. Why wouldn't I? You know? So I think it's in a decent situation from that perspective. Portugal, it's 28%. Yeah, capital gains is where a lot of people or a lot of governments try to find some money. Germany's 25%. Dude, Germany's GDP, we saw the stat. Germany's GDP has not grown in the past 5 years. That's insane, bro. I couldn't believe that stat when I saw it yesterday. I was like, what? Not 5%, 0% over 5 years. That's just pretty aggressive. Okay, 38.59 on Palantir. Let's get an update on OpenAI and what's going on with OpenAI and their $157 billion round of funding. Again, that could also be another pseudo tailwind for Palantir. If OpenAI is worth $157 billion, Palantir at $80 billion, you could argue that market caps are a little bit more comparable and that Palantir is at a discount. Before we get into the OpenAI thing, though, let me show this from last night. I put out this tweet last night. I'm not going to read the whole tweet. It's a very long tweet. I'll put it in the chat. If anyone wants to read it, you can read it. But I'm going to scroll down to the conclusion. This is on Robinhood. based on, so here's the last sentence of it. Okay, so I'm assuming 20% decrease in equities, crypto, and options volumes in September, no increase in margin balances, no increase in cash sweep, no increase in credit card revenues, and a decrease in securities lending. I am being as conservative as I could possibly be. I get to $648 million of revenue, which is 39% growth. If I get slightly bullish, but I still assume a decent amount of conservative assumptions, I get to $668 million for Robinhood's Q3, which is 43% growth, giving Hood 3 consecutive quarters of 40% growth. That is why I like buying it at $22.50, because when I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the macro landscape, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of components of the thesis, but all those components of the thesis come together. When they come together in an aggressive way, and you look at even the conservative amounts of the thesis that you can put together, you still get to 40% growth, which is not bad at all. We have OpenAI CFO on CNBC. Let's see what they have to say about this funding round, and let's get their perspective here as well.
Get to our interview with Sarah Friar. It's on OpenAI. On top of the $6.6 billion equity raise, OpenAI has raised $4 billion in a revolving credit line. This brings the liquidity total to $10 billion for this round. One of the largest private fundraisers we've seen in Silicon Valley history, and the largest credit line. So, of course, joining us to talk about all of that is OpenAI's CFO, Sarah Friar. Great to see you, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, let's talk about the news that just broke as we went to air. You are raising debt in addition to $6+ billion in equity. How did you think about the cost of capital, and talk about why raise debt in addition to billions of dollars in equity here?
Well, thank you. It has been a great last couple of days. So $4 billion in the revolving credit facility. It's undrawn at the moment. And that's really to give us flexibility with the business, particularly as capital needs might shift. We just want to know that it's there for us. The $6.6 billion in equity, now that's really about how do we go invest in the business from here. And I think what investors saw were three things. They saw the vision. OpenAI has really led what AI can be, what AI will be. ChatGPT kind of set that clock going about 2 years ago. I think secondly, they see focus. We are focused on native AI products. So we just released O1 Preview, as you know, the only model that really stops and thinks before it responds to you. And then advanced voice mode. So now you're interacting with this technology in the way we are right now, super fluid. And then finally, the scale. We led with numbers as we talked to investors and to the banks. And what they saw was 250 million weekly active users. In fact, I just checked before I arrived. We released 200 million weekly actives right at the end of August. So in just a month, that number is up by 50 million. Wow.
That's crazy, bro. You can't lie. That is crazy. In a world where it's hard to find consumer attention, to go from 200 to 250 weeklies in a month, it shows the demand for that product from consumers is pretty aggressive.
And so they saw the numbers as well. So we now have great investors, the best banks in the world, really joining Team OEI.
I was going to ask you about some of that growth. ChatGPT, for example, you mentioned the 50 million users in just the past month or so. Talk about some of the growth and the forecasting that would justify really doubling your valuation and that $150 billion. What's sort of justifying that number? Talk about some of the revenue growth that's behind that.
Sure. So as you can see with the user numbers, we've seen exponential growth, right? This is all done in about 2 years, which blows my mind. I've never seen anything like it in my whole career in technology. It's consumers, so a lot of that is ChatGPT Plus, but it's also businesses and even the smallest of businesses. What I look at in our enterprise business is we now have customers all around the globe, and we're absolutely revolutionizing industries like education and healthcare, right? These models can work on the toughest problems in the world. And of course, that's being backed up by revenue. Investors are not going to invest at a $157 billion valuation unless they see it starting to come through the business model. And I think that's what they got excited about.
And some new major investors on the cap table. Nvidia is one that caught a lot of attention. Yeah. I want to ask you about their involvement, and then some of the skepticism that the money that you're raising from Nvidia, for example, is funneling back to their chips in terms of you guys buying chips that really returning to them in some ways. How do you address some of that skepticism and criticism?
Sure. So folks like Nvidia, Microsoft, these are incredibly important partners in our ecosystem. I would actually say our relationship with Microsoft, if I start there, has been a generational partnership. Both Satya and Sam saw together. It was incredible when you think when they started to put that investment together and put the partnership together. Nvidia is another incredibly core part of that, right? What they're doing with GPUs, what they're doing in the tech stack, is what's enabling a lot of this. But it's not just those two. It is a much broader ecosystem that's forming. And I think this is what's also important about the fundraising we're doing right now. And as we continue to grow, is we're bringing along a whole ecosystem. Sam talks about this as the age of intelligence. I think of it as how then that becomes an age where it lifts people from a prosperity standpoint. We joked earlier, I'm a European that masquerades as an American. I really think long and hard about how this technology is going to go into the world and how it's going to lift people, generally speaking, by providing everyone with human level intelligence.
Sarah, Morgan's got a question for you, Sarah.
Sure.
Thank you. Sarah, it's great to have you on the show and appreciate all of the insights here given this major funding round and the news that just came out this morning. I'm curious about the competitive landscape here because it's been pretty well reported in the last 24 hours that investors into this funding round had stipulations attached, meaning that they couldn't necessarily invest in other competitors like Anthropic and XAI and others. Is that actually the case? And if so, how does it speak to how OpenAI is thinking about the evolution of this competitive landscape?
So first and foremost, we really want to make sure the ecosystem continues to develop from here. Like we are in such the early innings. I was listening to someone talk about, how much of what we now think of as the market cap of the internet existed about 2 years after Netscape launched, and it was about 1%. So if we think about 2 years after ChatGPT launches, are we just at 1% of the market caps that will be created? In terms of this round, look, we want to make sure our investors are really focused on OpenAI, but of course they're going to go out there and invest in the ecosystem, and this round is no different from any other round in that regard.
We've also seen quite a few high-profile leadership changes this year, including you joining the company, but also quite a bit of management turnover and high-profile departures as well. How disruptive is this, or should we be thinking about this as a new chapter? And if so, what does it say about that new chapter?
I think it's like any company I've been at, as they evolve, the leadership tends to evolve, the people at the company tends to evolve. And that is usually a very, very good thing. It's not to say that the folks who were here haven't built something incredible. Like I keep saying about this round, people congratulate me and I'm like, no, this is congratulations to you. I stand on the shoulder of giants, literally. And so those folks who have been with us on this journey so far, this is a huge testament to what they've built, what they discovered, something just truly unique and different in the world. But is the company going to keep evolving from here? Of course. When your valuation is lifting the way it just lifted, when your revenue is lifting, and more importantly, when you're starting to see customers come at the scale of 250 million weekly actives, you're going to have to keep adding to that base here at the company. We're growing very, very fast, but we also want to make sure we use our own technology as well. I was talking to Sam yesterday and just saying one of my goals is how do we create the company of the future using this technology, and it's going to start right in my backyard. So I want to create the finance function of the future using a lot of our own AI tools.
And Sarah, OpenAI notably started as a nonprofit. Was that part of this deal that the company needed to convert to a for-profit? And when should we expect that conversion to happen?
Yeah, so we have discussed this, that we are looking into how we restructure from here. But I think as we do that, a couple of things have to hold absolutely true. Number one, we're an incredibly mission-driven company. The nonprofit is really vital to that. And the mission of the nonprofit and the company is to make sure we bring AGI to the benefit of humanity. So really important, bringing AGI, but thinking about the benefit side to all of humanity. And then beyond that, we just want to be kind of a more traditional company. Why make things complicated that don't need to be complicated? We need to make sure we can continue to get investment so that we are a sustainable long-term participant in this ecosystem.
So OpenAI also, in addition to the $6 billion funding, they just established a $4 billion revolving credit line with JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley. So they have total liquidity, OpenAI, at $10.5 billion. They raised $6 billion. and they have another 4 in case they need to take out a loan, essentially. So that revolving credit line gives them the ability to finance up to $10.5 billion worth of operations, which is a very liquid startup that has momentum behind it. 38.33 on Palantir. So 10.30, market's getting slammed. I think there's a couple reasons the market's getting hit right now. Yeah, the S&P down about 0.33%. Number one, oil just spiked up aggressively. It was up 2% at like 9.05. Now it's up 4.79%. Not good. And the reason for that is the Iran-Israel headlines that are still in the headlines, but also the port strikes. Like the port strikes also make it tough for oil. I mean, it just creates more inflation overall for the shipping and exporting of oil, which leads to potential supply imbalances, which obviously can lead to higher prices. So those two things seem like that's why you're getting some pain right there in the context of oil. And that's what we got going on right now. And that's probably contributing to a little bit of this decline. And then also at 10:30 every day, for the past couple months, we've been getting a little bit of a slam. We have Fed speakers at 10:40. I don't know if they're going to be on CNBC speaking, but they are indeed speaking today. If they're on CNBC, we'll watch them. But I'm pretty sure Bostic is speaking today. And I think Goolsby, it might be another one. But they are speaking. Let's see if we can find it. So in about 8 minutes, their comments also will have some impact. Oh, yeah, right here. They're speaking at a 2024 Institute Research Conference. Okay, so I don't know how long he's going to be speaking for, but if he speaks for a good 10, 20 minutes, the market's going to have a lot of stuff to digest from what digest. I said digest for what he has to say. Tesla's at 245, Nvidia at 122, CrowdStrike at 281, SoFi 772, S&P 567, Palantir 3840, still holding the 38s, which is not bad. Robin at 2233, down about 1%. Reddit's up on the day, 68, Dell at 114, Intel at 2245. Are the port strikes affecting Amazon? 1000% they're affecting Amazon. I think that the market is afraid that certain goods are going to be delayed. For example, like if you order a water bottle from Amazon, if they have it in storage, you'll get that in 2 days or the same day delivery, right? That's not a big deal. So you'll get to pay Amazon. They'll get to count it as part of their sales and everything's good. But if they're ordering water bottles from China and it gets to a port in New Jersey and they need to fill up their factories with these water bottles, and because the port workers are on strike, they can't fill up the factory with the water bottles, they can't sell you the water bottle, and then you can't buy the water bottle from Amazon, which decreases their sales. I think that is the logical syllogism that's causing the 2% decline today and the, I think, 4% decline over the past couple of days. But again, I mean, to what extent are those port strikes really going to affect their sales? And given Amazon is such a big company and they're building off such a big base every time they report, because every quarter they're doing such big numbers, any slight miss can create the negative quarter over quarter growth, which might be what's being priced in right now for Amazon. Drop shippers are scared. 100% drop shippers are scared right now. If you don't know what drop shipping is, it's a business where you don't own the inventory. You sell the inventory from China and you just have like a front end UI, so a storefront. So basically someone comes to your website, they order the water bottle, but you don't have the water bottle in inventory. You order the water bottle for cheaper than what the person's paying you for the water bottle on your website. And then you just ship the water bottle to them from like China. A lot of people make a lot of money doing that. It's just, it's a little bit tough to get the unit economics to make sense on that. And obviously the shipping times suck because you could just order the water bottle from Amazon versus some random website online. But that might be some of the declines we're seeing right now in the context of Amazon. The problem is we are in Q4, Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas shopping. Amazon can't delay now. Yeah, that's correct. And again, I don't think they're delaying yet based on the port strikes, but every single day that the port strikes continue, that's where you may get a potential delay from Amazon, and that's what the street might be pricing in. All right, we got 5 minutes until Bostic speaks. Let me look at what Vlad just tweeted. So Vlad from Hood put out their Q3 updates. Let's see what he had to say and if we have anything new from him in these updates. Okay, so Joint accounts. That was the first thing that they shipped. Customers can now easily switch between their individual and joint accounts. That's basically if you have a partner, a spouse, you can do joint investing with them now on Robinhood. In September, we brought back our uncapped transfer bonus and gave out millions to customers for transferring their brokerage account into Robinhood. I do think that's going to help their deposits going into September. Advanced traders, trading trends are here, giving you the ability to track how other Robinhood customers, hedge funds, and company insiders are trading individual stocks. That's how I saw that retail was selling Palantir, at least on Robinhood over the past couple of days. Our advanced charts got more advanced. We dropped pinch to zoom, making it easier for investors to see a more detailed view on their charts. Robinhood's international expansion is making strides. Crypto launched a Solana staking rewards match for our European customers and continues to offer zero fee Bitcoin trading. And for our UK brokerage customers, we delivered stock lending. I know people in the UK want options and ESAs and all that stuff, but they're working on kind of getting through the regulatory framework to bring that to UK customers. 2 other updates. I know you've been asking about the gold card. So far, 85,000 customers. Okay, the last update we got was 50,000. Wow, so that means in Q3, they updated by 35,000 customers on the credit card. That's not bad. I know a lot of people want this credit card, but they're being conservative with the underwriting and trying to make sure they roll it out slowly in the right way. So that's up from 50,000. So we got 35,000 new people using the credit card. And then they put out a teaser. Lately, you may have noticed some teasers from Robinhood app and they posted a video of the teaser. Dude, this legendary event, whatever it's going to be, they keep teasing it. I mean, they're literally calling it a legend awakens. Like, if they're announcing some stuff that truly, really, really is going to be legendary in terms of its go-to-market, its appeal, its ability to create net new lines of revenue, that's another reason I like the stock at these levels. All right, so those are the updates from Robinhood. Not bad. Not bad stuff at all. Benny says Robinhood won't be able to compete with Trading 212 here in the UK. Look, I agree. Right now, they suck compared to Trading 212. I agree. They don't have the features that are ready to beat them right now. They're going to have a very innovative approach in the UK. They're going to have to also, they really don't market in the UK. They're going to have to really start marketing aggressively in the UK. So I don't know what's their plan to win in the UK, but I think they rolled it out just to like say they internationally expanded and also to get through the regulatory hurdles, because just saying that you're able to offer your product in a new country that has a ton of regulations, given it's Europe, that's an achievement in and of itself. And now in 2025, if they can actually say, hey, we plan to grow here, I think that'll be bullish, along with hopefully announcing a place like Canada, which I know a lot of people want Robinhood there in Canada as well. Where is Palantir? Palantir 38.64. So Palantir trying to get back to where it was. We hit 38.98 on the day. Maybe if Bostic says something interesting, that'll help Palantir. Nvidia getting a green candle as well at 122.57. That's helping Palantir. CrowdStrike as well going a bit green. Snapchat's down, Google's down, Nike's down, MicroStrategy's down. Short QQQ is up a little bit. Lockheed Martin, wow, Lockheed Martin all-time high. Looks like the Middle Eastern headlines are driving that. PayPal's down 1.29%. Carnival Cruise down about 2%. Snowflake down about 0.2%. S&P 567, and then you got Palantir right here at 38.65 right now. Tesla selling off again as well. Palantir maybe 38.70. Tesla down 2%. Tesla tried to reclaim 250, but just wasn't able to get their levels. Is Robinhood available in the EU? Yes, but only for crypto. Only for crypto, not the brokerage part of the platform. Samir just joined the stream and he's looking at Palantir. Yeah, dude. We've been through quite a morning with Palantir. We hit 38.98 at one point, and then we got rejected. All right, so let me see where Bostic's speaking at. Let's see if we can pull this up. And oh, he's speaking. All right, here we go. We got he literally started speaking 30 seconds ago. Literally, here we go. All right, here is Bostic. And let's see if this impacts anything around the markets.
Thank you, Abby, for the warm introduction. This actually...
I can't increase the volume, guys, so this is the volume. So hopefully it's not too low.
This appearance is actually years in the making. I think the first invitation came like 2.5 years ago. And
oh my God, the volume's bad. Even I see the volume's bad. Let me know if the volume's too bad, we won't listen to it. But is CNBC streaming it instead? Do they have better volume? Let me check. The volume is kind of bad.
I'm trying to get calendars and things. It's great to be here. And as you probably know, Congress bestowed us with a dual mandate. to promote price stability and maximum employment for the entire population. And here,
Yeah, volume's bad. We won't listen to it. All right, we're gonna have to wait. Volume sucks on this. Volume sucks. Yeah, I mean, we'll get the clips of it after, and we'll see what goes on from there. But if the volume sucks, we probably can't really engage too deeply with it. Let's go to CNBC. Let's get an update from China. Whatever important stuff he says, we'll see what he says, and then we'll just see what those we'll see over the next 20 minutes what impacts that has on the market as well, and then we'll see what he said.
Obviously, our flagship fund is really focused on the growth stocks outside of China. But I think you also have to look at the Shanghai and Shenzhen stocks. That's predominantly owned by investors in China. So that's kind of, for us, it's KBA or MSCI China A. That I think next Tuesday is going to be like nothing you've ever seen. 60 brokerage houses have announced that they're staying open during this national holiday in order to open brokerage accounts. You have the PBOC had said they're going to give 500 billion RMB, so call it 7 billion, to mutual fund families, insurance companies, to buy stocks. And if that doesn't get the Shanghai, Shenzhen, the KBA market up, they're going to give them another 500 billion. If that doesn't get it up, so it's. There's a lot coming, and I think a lot of good news coming. Just this is going to affect the economy. It's going to be a very positive effect. That'll take time, but good economic numbers coming. That'll flow into the balance sheets of the companies we hold.
Do you think they're limited by their debt?
I think they don't have a supply problem. They have a demand problem. So yes, I mean, debt, particularly on the real estate side, is why you're seeing all of this policy support. But government debt is only 60% of GDP. So the government has a huge amount of leeway in terms of dry powder that they can unleash. They're only running about a 2% budget deficit. That could double or triple. All, I think, very much focused geared to the consumer.
You think they're targeting asset prices or confidence or youth unemployment, or what do you think is the target?
All of the above.
Really?
I mean, they've actually, in the statement out last Thursday from President Xi, he actually explicitly said employment is a problem, acknowledging it. They know real estate prices have really weighed on consumer confidence, weighed on the consumer. And so they need to stabilize. They need to get those prices up. But then we still haven't seen what they're going to do to stimulate the consumer. Is it free money? I mean, I don't think they're going to do the full modern monetary theory.
That is a good point. I mean, China's not sending out checks yet to stimulate the consumer. They're helping businesses, but they're not literally giving free money. If that starts happening, then China's going to a different moon. But so far, that's not happening yet.
Helicopter money here, but they're going to do something, and that's going to be a very good headline as it comes out in the next few weeks.
Okay, we'll be watching it closely. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come this morning, the big tech playbook as we go into Q4 with the Mag 7.
I mean, that's a good point on China. We have not fully stimulated the way that we did in the United States, or back in 2020. But if that continues to happen, we might see some more momentum. Here is an update on the port strikes as well. Yeah, guys, I tried listening to Bostic again. It's just the audio is so bad there. So we'll wait for the clips and then we'll listen to what he has to say.
Consumer goods specifically, nearly 100% of tobacco and pharma imports come through East and Gulf Coast ports. Nearly 80% of perfume and cosmetics, also beverages and spirits, vegetables and fruit, about 70% of meat, fish, and dairy, as well as more than half of all vehicles, furniture, and apparel, according to Wolf Research. Now, fresh fruit is one category to really watch here. Not only is it perishable, meaning distributors couldn't stock up ahead of time, but imports are roughly half of U.S. consumption. About 90% of cherries coming through those key ports, 82% of hot peppers, and 3/4 of all bananas, which are the most popular fruit in the U.S., according to the American Farm Bureau. Now, soft commodities are also in focus. About 80% of sugar, coffee, and cocoa come in through these key ports. We might not see that big of an impact on sugar prices, given that only about 1/4 of consumption is imported. The same cannot be said, though, for coffee and cocoa. Coffee is 70 to 80%. Cocoa is at 100%, according to Wolf. And so, as Rabobank said, this could mean even more pressure on these already strained supply chains. Cocoa prices up 70% this year. Guys?
Pippa, that's a good point. Kramer's been sharp on this point as well about fresh food. I guess it's because not just the perishability, but the fact that you can't reroute it to West Coast.
Exactly. And we saw with a lot of retailers, they've all stocked up ahead of time. Companies have been ahead of this to the extent that they could be. But when it comes to those fresh fruits that Americans rely on, and also things like seafood and meat, you really can't keep it in a warehouse for a long period of time. Those are more of those just-in-time supply chains. And so those will be the products where we will first see that inflationary impact.
We'll get some fresh data on freight container rates, I think, tomorrow. We're coming off of a bit of a lower base, but we'll see if this has any impact this week. Pippa, thanks. Pippa Stevens.
Port strikes, you got to get resolved. Got to get resolved. Until they get resolved, that is going to be a headwind for the broader market. Chris CRM, thank you for the $40 super chat. Really appreciate that, Chris. That's a share of Palantir I'll buy on you. Amit, thanks for your intel, energy, and time for building this community and for helping us better understand and consider Palantir. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you, Chris. It means the world. Thank you all for being here every single day. Again, it's super fun to do this every single day. And, there's ups and downs to this job in particular. And 2022 was 18 months of being down. But, when things change, then there's a lot of excitement as well. And it's based on people that went through 2022 that get to see the excitement now. So it's just one of the most resilient companies I've seen, in the stock, 38.70. Maybe we make a run at 39 again. It is a different world for me, dude. I was talking about this yesterday, but I having covered this 2 years ago, could barely get any movement out of it. Every little headline would take it down 10%. And now it's like every little headline takes it up 4%. I mean, it's pretty damn incredible. So it's been a fun journey, dude. It's been a fun journey. And I think it'll only continue to get better. Speaking of Palantir, on the market close, I'm going to have 4 Palantir employees talk about DevCon. So make sure you're there at 4 p.m. Chad will be there and a couple other people you guys haven't met. And they're going to introduce what DevCon is. Basically, TLDR, it's AIPCon for developers. Why it's important, how you can win a free trip to DevCon, and ultimately what they're trying to get out of DevCon. So that'll be really exciting at 4 p.m. It'll be about 4 to 4:30. I'll get to talk to them and get their perspectives on what Palantir is doing with DevCon. But as you can see, they're expanding. It's not just AIPCon anymore, which is mainly for customers and investors. Now it's for the technical people, the devs. They're trying to figure out how do they get thousands and thousands of people that are getting certified in Foundry and AIP and really scaling up the software stack over the coming years. Chris says we went through emotional hell and needed a place to be. Yep. I mean, it was wild, dude. It's just, the more I reflect on it, the more it's just fucking insane, bro. Like 18 months of oscillating from $6 to $8. Fucking, we're powering Ukraine, stocks down 2%. It's I remember when the headline came out, it's June of 2022. I'm like, wait a second, Zelensky's using Palantir? Palantir down 5%. I'm like, what is going on, dude? When is the market gonna see what we're seeing? It was profitability. Profitability changed everything. Really, it was profitability, and then they started sipping the ontology Kool-Aid and going down the rabbit hole. When are they going to tell us more about Warp Speed? I think soon. I know they're planning on putting out content about Warp Speed, but yeah, I agree. They've been a little late to tell us about that. Jack did talk about it on the halftime show at AIPCon, so he gave a bit of an overview of what it is, but we haven't got any specifics since then. So I would imagine over the next couple months we get more details on that one as well. Amid slimming down for the 20 pounds he's going to get visiting family in India. Dude, I hope I can monitor my eating in India, dude, because I've been decent with my eating here in America for the past couple months. But in India, if you reject food, it's almost as if you've murdered somebody. It's bad, bro. If you reject food, especially from my grandma, if she offers me something and I say, no, not right now, she'll take it as if you don't love her. It's really bad, bro. And it's one of those things where it's you just have to eat it. Also, my grandmother doesn't eat chicken, but she knows like me, my cousins, we eat chicken. And so it's so hilarious every time we go to India because we're not going to not try Indian KFC and stuff. So she knows when we go out with our uncles and stuff, we're going to eat chicken. And when we come back and we step into she's so anti-eating chicken, bro. When we step into her apartment, she just looks at us and she knows she knows we've committed these sins of eating meat. And she just doesn't want to talk to us during that time, but she gets over it after a couple hours, but so we're going to have to be secretive again and get our, dude, Indian KFC is different, bro. The spices are different. The butter chicken, everything's different. But yeah, I can't reject food in India. Like, and it's not even my grandmother. If I go to if we go to visit someone's house and they bring, some snacks, if you don't eat, like, they legit think like you hate them. It's like, no, dude, I just don't feel like eating. It's like, nope. You got to eat a little bit. And that's not just Indian culture. That's a lot of different cultures, to be honest. I think like Greek culture is also like that. It's like a sign of disrespect if you don't eat the food. What if your grandma offers you mayo? That's not gonna, I mean, look, I'm not, she'll, all right. If she thinks I'm gonna hate her for that, then she thinks I'm gonna hate her. Like, I'm not doing that. Now, granted, in India, mayo is not really a thing. Like, I don't think people eat it. India has so many random spreads and spices and like chutneys and all this stuff. Mayo is not a real thing in India. I'm sure it's there, but mayo is not part of the diet, in my opinion. Oxy's up 1.52%. Pounds are at 38.78, trying to push 38.80 again. So I don't think I'll run into that issue, but hopefully I don't have to deal with mayo. Hopefully not. 38.82. All right, Palantir catching a little bit of a bid. Is Nvidia catching a bid right here, or is this just Palantir by itself? Yep, Nvidia, like clockwork. Nvidia back to 123, back to a $3 trillion company. Palantir back to 38.80. Both of them really moving in tandem with each other. Amit, is ranch okay? No, ranch, mayo, and blue cheese are all disgusting white pieces of substances that I don't get how people engage in with their like chicken wings, and people do blue ranch and wings. It's like, no, or blue cheese and ranch and wings. No, dude, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. The only real acceptable two sauces are barbecue and ketchup. That's it. Like, I don't know why people have to complicate it with all this like white stuff. Like, I don't get it. Barbecue and ketchup, like, it's pretty normal. But no, ranch, blue cheese, none of that stuff. None of that stuff is good. I'm Beneficial said I bought 100 shares of SoFi. I don't hate that. I don't hate that right here. You are now being ridiculous. I'm not being ridiculous, dude. I'm not being ridiculous. What about sour cream? That's disgusting too, dude. I don't know why you guys eat this stuff. Like, it's not, I don't know, dude. Maybe my taste buds are different than everyone else, but I can't. Like, when I get nachos, like, if you get to a Mexican restaurant, you get nachos. Like, I make sure they know no sour cream on top of the nachos. Like, do not put the sour cream there, because I will not eat the nachos if there's sour cream. I just can't do it. I cannot do it. Oh, what else do we have? Palantir 38.80. Let me check the resistance at 39. If it's still aggressive. Robin is 22.39. Palantir 38.82. 39. 12,000 shares. So it went from 8,000 to 12,000. Dude, if we get the volume, we're going to bust through that. It's going to be easy. That's not like 80,000, 100,000 shares waiting. We can bust through it. We just need the volume to come in. Just need the volume to come in. Those foods were developed in cold climates where you need to lose a lot of calories fast. Yeah, that's fair. No, cream cheese, I actually like cream cheese. I like cream cheese. Cream cheese on a bagel, I will eat cream cheese. Even though cream cheese is, as a white substance, I will engage with cream cheese outside of blue cheese and ranch and all that stuff. But it can't be a lot of cream cheese. It has to be light. If it's a lot of cream cheese, then it's like, I feel like I'll throw up. Just be very light cream cheese. Like, when I go to Dunkin', I'm like, light. I'm like, please, light cream. If you put a lot of cream cheese on this, it's just like, it's too much. Cream cheese I can handle. The other ones, yeah, Caesar salad. I don't do the Caesar salads either, because they put that type of ranch. Like, I don't do that, bro. I don't do it. Keep disrespecting white substances, and I'm turning into a Palantir bear. It would be so fun. By the way, you guys know Ted Mabry, the head of global commercial at Palantir. He hates mayo as well. He hates mayo. So I've got someone from Palantir on my side who hates mayo. Bro, taste colors. I mean, look, first of all, why is blue cheese not blue? Okay, my favorite color is blue. If blue cheese was blue, maybe I would actually engage in it. It's not. It's like call it white cheese. Why are you calling it blue cheese? That makes no sense. I'm a food racist, exactly. I'm a food racist. Mayophobia is the fear of mayonnaise. Is that a real word? Oh, let's see. Mayophobia. There's no chance this is real. No, it's not a real word. Imagine if that was a real word, dude. Kraft Mayo offers kits to help overcome mayophobia. No way. This is a real article. Kraft had to launch a marketing campaign to overcome mayophobia. Holy crap. So it's not just me, bro. It's a real thing. Mayophobia exists. Kraft had to launch a marketing campaign. Dude, this is a real article. I'm not going to play the video. YouTube's going to, because it's Kraft, they're going to copyright it. Here, I'm going to put the article in the chat. This is a real thing. They launched the marketing campaign in May of 2021 to deal with mayophobia. By running a contest on Instagram and Twitter, Kraft Heinz can raise awareness for Kraft Mayo, boosted social media following, blah, 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 blah. Kraft Mayo campaign comes as Kraft Heinz seeks to maintain sales momentum as many consumers gradually resume their pre-pandemic activities. Yeah, and the campaign was around not hating mayo. Look at this, overcoming mayophobia. I don't want to play it because YouTube's going to copyright anything, but there you go. Look at this. Look at this. Look, the offbeat campaign could appeal to consumers who have grown fatigued with traditional advertising by keying into extreme reactions that some people have to mayo, including reports that millennials hate it. It's not just me, folks. It's not just me. It's a real thing. It is indeed a real thing. All right, let's see what other updates we have going on in the world of markets. What else are we looking at? What else? Markets are Palantir still 38.69. Looks like it might oscillate in this range for a little bit. Not really getting anything too different. I do have a clip of what's his name of Kashkari talking for a little bit. This is from a couple days ago, but he was talking about inflation. So if we can't hear Bostic, let's at least hear Kashkari from a couple days ago talk a little bit about inflation, then we'll go from there.
Prices, 2% inflation. You know, we're not all the way there yet, but we're making progress getting inflation back down. And the other is maximum employment, as many Americans gainfully employed and contributing to our economy. And it turns out education is enormously important to maximum employment. If you want to have more Americans gainfully employed, hopefully in good jobs, contributing to our society, obviously education is absolutely a critical issue for there. So we've spent the last couple of decades studying issues around educational attainment, education disparities, because it is so tightly linked back to our maximum employment mandate. And what does it mean to be at maximum employment? You actually have to understand how well are our citizenry educated. It's a key component.
Okay, so nothing too crazy there. Let's listen to Lauren Goodwin, get her thoughts on the market. But yeah, still no updates from Bostic yet. I think we'll get those quotes in a bit.
That said, the economy is really walking a tightrope, not teetering on the edge of recession or anything like that, but a real balance between overheating and the market being concerned about growth. And so in that environment, though I expect risk asset performance to be average, that might not feel as good for investors as the last couple of years. And so we're looking at portfolio construction really closely to try and take advantage of big picture themes, like, for example, the Fed moving lower in interest rates.
Feels like, though, tightrope to me sounds a little extreme. I mean, connotation being that one wrong step and you fall over, where it feels like the road is a little bit smoother than many people thought it would be. Sure, there are potholes in front of us, but this has been really resilient and we've been able to steer around most anything that's been thrown our way. How would you respond to that?
I think that's really fair from an economic perspective. And as you know, we were quite concerned about the economy in the first half of this year, moving much more constructive because of that resilience, and specifically the resilience in profit margins. And so the balance beam is less about teetering off into an abyss and more about how does the market absorb the reasonable economic data that we have. So, for example, a weaker than expected jobs report, that's likely to be a concern for growth, potentially volatility in risk assets, maybe expectations that the Fed might cut a little faster. Whereas even just a little smidge of data in the opposite direction gets you the exact opposite result. That's a challenging environment for anyone who's trying to invest for longer than a day. And so that's the tightrope that I see really more for risk asset.
But what if we just say, you know, net, been using the word distill a lot lately. I have, because there's a lot out there, but some would distill it all down and say, Fed's cutting, economy's still good. And that's really, at the end of the day, those are the two most important things that matter more than anything else. We get that good news is good news and bad news is bad news. A bad jobs report would obviously be concerning, but net, cutting, still strong. That's what matters.
I tend to agree with that. And so if the economy is still strong or resilient, let's say, and the Fed's cutting, what do? I mean, the number one concern for investors then becomes reinvestment risk.
Hey, don't you buy equities?
I think that you buy risk assets, but I strongly prefer credit. And the reason is not that I think equities are going to do poorly in this environment, but that the upside relative to credit is limited. And that's because both assets have really performed quite well on a price or valuation level. And so the question for investors becomes, how can you generate income and manage what might be, again, a sort of a middling, still reasonable, but middling risk asset performance over the next couple of quarters. And so that's why, from our perspective, credit is such an interesting opportunity. And where equity is concerned, rate cuts really are still a big part of that story. When some of the structural themes that we've thought are really interesting around the semiconductor supply chain, around energy, those are sectors that tend to do well when rates are moving lower. And so it's really a commingled story between debt and equity.
I mean, there are others,
Look, I think that's a fair point. I mean, her analysis right there is not that different from a lot of the other analysts that said, hey, we've had a lot of run in the large cap tech stocks, and so maybe they are going to be a little bit more stable and we see a rotation. However, that rotation can face some headwinds if the port strikers stay on strike, and if this Middle Eastern stuff, this geopolitical volatility gets worse. Now, in general, geopolitical volatility is by the news. The port striker stuff is not really by the news. It's more so, hey, like this could actually ramp up inflation. So I think our analysis there is fair. The economy is on a tight edge. I think the non-farm payrolls tomorrow, if those are good, we get closer to thinking that there's less of a chance of a recession. And then we just need Q3 earnings to go well, inflation to come down. Oil is up right now. We need to keep an eye on what happens with oil as these Middle Eastern headlines continue to maintain some dominance. Oil just fell by 1%. It was up 5%. Now it's up 4%. So that's good. But that'll be really important to track over the next couple of weeks. Japan. So Japan was pretty bullish yesterday. Japan said, the new prime minister of Japan said he's likely not going to be thinking of raising rates anytime soon. There are some people that still think Japan could raise rates. I think if the PM is telling everyone we're not going to raise rates, then we shouldn't see a raising of rates. So Japan's PM said the economy isn't ready for further interest rate hikes following a first meeting with the Bank of Japan yesterday. This last night, we saw USD JPY go to 147. And again, this is good. The higher it goes, the more the dollar gets strengthened against the yen, which is a very good thing and is bullish for people that are borrowing against the yen. So that hitting 147, we were at 142 last week, or we were at 142 on Monday. So nice to see that happening. That's relatively bullish for the broader economy, or for at least US stocks, definitely bullish for Bitcoin. 38.69 on Palantir. And so it seems like Japan and China and the Saudis are creating some momentum for the current macro landscape that we have right now. You guys are giving some very interesting comments around Lauren in the chat. I do have an update for you guys. I am in contact with a couple people. I do believe we will have a full-time contributor to the channel starting in November, if everything works out, and it will be a female. We will have a female contributor on the channel. So it's going to be around AI and tech. I reached out to them over the weekend, talked to them. They love the idea. And so probably in November, we're going to give it a go. It'll probably be like every Thursday, probably like, like with Jose, he joins the Talk Semis for like 8 to 10 minutes. It'll be the same thing with her. I think you guys will like her. She's pretty smart, in my opinion, and she knows what she's talking about. So we'll have our own actual, it's not Haley. Goodness, it's not Haley, dude. It's not Haley. This is someone I personally know. This is someone who you guys don't know in like the finance world. But she's super cool, dude. She's super cool. And I called her up and I was like, hey, I have this idea. Like, I need more contributors. Do you want to join? And she loved the idea. And so every week we should get a little weekly segment from her in terms of AI updates. So we'll we'll maintain the momentum. I mean, dude, I really want to diversify. Like, I'm thinking of 2025 upgrading the whole studio. Like, I want to get a soundboard. You know what I want to do? I want to get a standing desk, and I want to like stand up while I'm doing the show. And maybe that's not like realistic, but like if I can adjust the cameras and stuff, I kind of like want to be standing up the whole time. It's actually a little bit cooler just standing up and navigating everything versus sitting down here. So there's a lot of different updates I want to do. And part of the updates is we need more contributors, dude. We need more contributors because I don't just want to watch people on CNBC. Like, that's fine if they're really good, but I want to have my own internal people that we can go to that are also pretty good. So that is the plan for 2025. Palantir right here, 38.65, up about 3% still right now. It's not my mom. Goodness, bro. It's actually someone who I think you guys will like her. She's pretty cool. And if, by the way, if anyone is in the chat that like wants to be a contributor that like actually is knowledgeable and like wants to get on camera, maybe wants to build their YouTube channel and is willing to come on every week or every other week, like hit me up on Twitter. Like, let's have a conversation. I would love to have people that are in the real world. Like if you're, if you work in the semiconductor industry and you think you can offer a lot of insight, or you're a software engineer who wants to build their personal brand and you're using co-pilots every day, like reach out to me on Twitter. If you work in oil and gas, right, and you want to be the weekly oil and gas segment contributor, I think it'd be really cool to have our own people on the channel. Basically what Chris is doing for the macro, we need to find more people like that I can recruit for the channel themselves. Emphasis on pretty. Okay, yes. Do I think she's pretty? Yes, I think she's pretty. And I told her I think she's pretty, and she knows she's pretty. So she's like, I think you guys will like her. I think, but her analysis is what I think you will like. You might like some other parts about her, but I think her analysis is actually what you will like. And the analysis, well, look, no matter how pretty you are, if you have crappy analysis, you guys aren't going to like her as a guest, right? You can't just stare at someone that's saying nonsense. And she's actually very smart. Like she went to NYU. She's a very smart human being. So I think her analysis will be very strong. You guys will enjoy the analysis. You guys will want to hear from her every week. And yeah, I do think she's pretty as well, which is not a horrible thing as well. That definitely helps. Is she prettier than TJ? Maybe she's a little bit prettier than TJ. Maybe. But she's cool, dude. She's cool. Look, I've been friends with. I've known her since high school. I've known her for a while, and she's like trying to build her brand and stuff. So I'm like, hey, why don't you do it this way? And she loved the idea, by the way. Like when I mentioned it to her, like within 2 seconds, she was like, oh my God, I love this. Like I definitely want to do this. Because dude, it's hard to build your own brand, right? Like it's really hard. It's not easy. She's been trying. It's not just easy to go from 0 to 1,500 people in a live stream. Like there's a lot of fucking work you have to do. And it's easier if you can leverage someone's audience and at least have a platform to have some distribution for your ideas versus start from 0. It's very, very hard to start from 0. And by the way, I did the same thing. It wasn't really someone else's platform, but it was Palantir. Palantir's platform is what I leveraged. Even when it was at $6, people cared about Palantir. I was able to make content around Palantir, and that led me to get into people's ecosystem of content. And that's what led to the growth of the channel. So everyone needs to use someone's platform, Palantir 3855, in some capacity. And with her, she's been struggling over the past couple of really years to do it. So I'm like, maybe this is a easy way to help you out a little bit. Is it the PhD chick? I don't know what PhD chick you're talking about, but no, she's not. She doesn't have a PhD. But I don't know exactly what PhD chick you're talking about, Chris. Will she bring bricks? It should be so funny. I should tell her to get a brick background. Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. That'd be so hilarious. You use Dan Ives for clout? Yeah, there you go. I use Dan Ives for clout as well. So see, everyone, so that's actually a perfect example, right? Dan Ives and me doing a Spaces and a YouTube video, like that introduced me to new audiences. You always have to feed off of other people, but building it, yourself every single day when you can't do a Dan Ives collaboration every single day, because that doesn't happen every day. But the moments that it does happen, you want to be able to capture those people and they know who you are and at least consider checking out your content, right? But you got to show up every single day to do it consistently, and it's just not the easiest thing. But I think you guys will enjoy. I I think people do it on Joe Rogan all the time. Yeah, 100%. Joe Rogan's a master at tapping into all these different communities and people leveraging his audience. Amit's wedding will be on live stream. Oh my God. Blake says we need more women in the community. Too much of a sausage fest. I agree as well, dude. Like, I think in general, more women in finance is a good thing, you know? And that's why I'm super supportive of Haley, who's in Palantir. I did the podcast with her and Farzad the other day, because whether you like love her content, love her analysis or not, I think her analysis is actually pretty decent. She's a woman trying in a space that's really crowded with men. And I think we got to encourage that, you know? Now you can't be horrible. You can't just be absolutely trash at the job, horrible clickbait analysis, you know, selling courses, all this stuff. Like you can't do the conventional stuff people hate in finance. But if you're trying and you're growing every day and you look different than a lot of the other people that are here, I think we got to encourage that. And so that's another reason I reached out to her. I was like, hey, like my audience would love to have a diversity of guests, because I'm really talking for 3 hours every day. It would be nice to have 4 or 5 people that can talk for 10 minutes that can add color to something, you know, versus me just talking about it as well. So that's important. Amit, how do I pick up the Indian chick at my UPS? You ask her if she wants to, get a delivery of your package. Know what I'm talking about? Know what I'm talking about? Know what I'm talking about? Okay, that was kind of cringe, but still, that's not too bad. That's not too, but you can't say that's horrible. You cannot say that was horrible. You just can't say it. All right, let's get some updates from Strategos and what they have to say on what it means to be bearish or not bearish currently in this market. Their argument is that it is a very tough thing, or it is a high bar to actually go super bearish. Let's get their perspective, and then we'll keep going from there. But yeah, I think you guys will enjoy her analysis. She's pretty smart, and she should be able to talk really nicely on AI and tech, which is kind of the segment that I want her to do. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to this.
Market and the investors looking ahead to tomorrow's monthly jobs report. Let's bring in Jason Trenant, Chairman and CEO of Strategic Research Partners, a Baird company. He's a very cautious person. Would you say that did you ever turn bullish? When did you turn bullish?
By the way, this guy was bearish for like a year and a half. So it seems like maybe he's not bearish anymore.
At the end of when we realized we were wrong at the end of 2023. So we've been bullish this year.
I don't know if he's exactly, I feel like I've seen some clips in 2024 where he has not been really bullish, but okay. So basically they pivoted at the start of the year.
For a recession last year, which didn't work out.
Right. But it was hard in 2022 and 2023 to look at the market and think that it wasn't going to make new lows. That was a different, because there was nothing indicating it should move higher, but it did.
It's a lot of this has been, a good portion of this has been multiple expansion, right? So earnings have clearly kept up, but the big turning point in 2023, this is ancient history now, is actually when Silicon Valley Bank failed. At that point, the market was flat on the year, and then it took off because we essentially backstopped all the deposits in the country. The Fed flooded the system with liquidity. Then at the end of last year, it's hard to believe, but 11 months ago, the S&P 500 hit 4,100 briefly when 10-year Treasury yields hit 5. And then Janet Yellen stopped issuing long-term interest rates, long-term
and also
notes.
backstop.
And so market then took off again. And now, frankly, it's hard to get, we haven't been bearish this year. We've been bullish this year.
Well, now maybe you should be bearish.
Maybe I should be.
It's a good point, dude. In summer of 2023, when we spiked up to 460 on the S&P, then October we bottomed and 10 years hit like 4.7 and the S&P fell to 410. That's when most of the bears felt like they were correct that 2023 would be bad. And then the Fed pivoted in December and you had rate cuts, and then inflation was sticky for the next couple months, but then you had Nvidia take off like crazy with their earnings growth, and those two things together with inflation coming down, that is what's led to the current market that we're in right now.
And at 22 times earnings, right? And we know we're in an easing cycle now. What positive, what that hasn't already happened positive can still happen?
The only thing could happen is that earnings actually come in as expected next year, because the earnings expectations for next year are about up 14% for the S&P.
Up 14.
Right. The only problem with that, and one of the questions you asked in the pre-show is like, what is inconsistent? One of the things that's inconsistent is that the market's looking for 6 easings. At the same time, they're looking for a 14% increase in earnings, and that doesn't happen generally.
Because you'd only ease 6 times if things weren't going great.
Right. So it doesn't, to me, that's the issue. By the same token, do you want to fight? Right now, you're fighting everybody. You're fighting the Fed. You're fighting the federal government in terms of deficits of 7% of GDP. It's an election year. So it's really, in my opinion, it's really hard. The bar is high to get bearish from here. What we found is if 10-year Treasury yields are above 4.5, that's when the market tends to have some indigestion. But below 4.5, 380, it's hard to get bearish.
You like gridlock? Is that what you're hoping for? I think we hit 35 trillion.
Frankly,
like yesterday or something.
Frankly, I'm not hoping for gridlock. I mean, you know what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for a real change that is much more free market oriented, because gridlock is not producing. The problem with QE for 12 years is that it's created an enormous moral hazard on both sides of the aisle that spending doesn't matter. I mean, remember when Carville said, I want to be reincarnated as the bond market because it scares everyone? There's no one, Republican or Democrat now, that's afraid of the bond market. And to me, that's a problem because we're just compounding the problems by continuing to spend money we don't have. And eventually the bill will come due for
But
this.
the Republican Party has not really talked about bringing down deficit spending.
This is a bipartisan
taxes, tax breaks that they're
Well, if you believe only growth can solve it, then I don't see. Yeah.
That's my opinion. It's the only way out. We're certainly not going to, in terms of tax revenues.
Democrats would say we're getting growth now with the Democratic administration.
Well, you're getting it because you're running deficits of $2 trillion a year. I mean, so you're just robbing
in a
Peter
rip
to
roaring,
pay Paul.
that's this year in a rip roaring economy. We hit 2 trillion.
Yeah, we're running deficits as if we're already in recession. We've never run deficits of this magnitude when the unemployment rate was.
And the Fed's easing.
And the Fed's easing.
In a rip roaring stock market, and it's all impossible to figure.
So we do, I mean, he is right. We added a ton of debt, bro. Federal debt, pounds are 38.50 right now. Federal debt explodes on the first day of the new fiscal year, jumping $204 billion to a new record, $35.669 trillion. But it gets worse. Treasury also had to draw down its cash balance for $72 billion. That's over $270 billion in the red for just one day. Again, when I see stuff like this, there's 2 thoughts that I have. A, Bitcoin maybe is the best solution long-term to this inevitable spending that is not going to go down. B, does it even matter anymore that we have this much debt if we're just going to keep letting it pile up and people are going to keep buying our bonds because they're going to assume America is good for it because everyone else's debt sucks besides America's debt? I don't know. I don't know. One thing I know for damn sure, we better keep spending on the military because the only thing that's backing up this debt is that we have the best military. And so for everyone that hates, the amount of defense spending we spend, I feel like that literally is the defense spending budget is what keeps the dollar somewhat stable in contrast to all the debt we have. Because the reason people don't fuck with us is because we have a big military. As soon as if China, starts becoming the world power or Russia and their currency becomes the reserve currency and we have to default on our debt, like, capitalism, freedom, democracy, all that stuff is gone. The only thing that stops that theoretically, and I know I'm simplifying it, but is a strong military. And so it's something that matters. I think this is a good point that, look, the market is held up also based on the government spending, and anyone, Trump or Harris, is probably not going to stop massive government spending, which might just mean that's how the market continues to go further. Also, I was reading Bill Clinton's debt plan last night, his budget plan from 1998. Don't ask me why I was reading it, but I was reading it. And he projected in 2012 that he would have had eliminated. Remember, Bill Clinton had a surplus. It was the last presidential administration that had a legit surplus. He said by 2012, the U.S. would have no debt. That's what he projected in 1998. And they would save $2.3 trillion in Social Security, $460 billion in Medicare, and then $150 billion in something else. And they would get rid of the debt by 2012. That didn't happen. 2000, we had the dot-com crash. 2001, we had 9/11. Then we had the Iraq war. Then we had 2008, which was the housing bubble. So we went through a lot of stuff, and we, ended up spending a lot of money on war, and that surplus turned into a massive deficit, and now we are at 35 trillion. And then we had the pandemic happen, which exacerbated probably 10 years of money printing in like 18 months. So the question then becomes, does it matter, or do you actually buy Bitcoin as a hedge? And like I Bitcoin right here down about 2%, probably on the Middle East headlines. I don't know, because Bitcoin still is a risk-on asset. We talked about yesterday the inverse relationship Bitcoin has to inflation that ends up acting like a risk asset that actually cares about inflation. So it's one of those things where it's like, does the debt just not matter, or is there a real way to hedge against it? Is gold the way we hedge against? Gold's up 30% this year. Like, I feel like there's a lot of questions around the U.S. debt that we're going to try to have to figure out. Doug says, wow, our boys all grown up, understand that the military is the reason all of this stuff exists. I mean, dude, I think as a Palantir investor, you can't. It's so funny when I see some Palantir investors that like critique a lot of the stuff about America's military. So I'm like, you realize like you're investing in a company that is like thriving because of the defense spending and all the necessities that the U.S. government has around maintaining a high level of sophisticated infrastructure when it comes to the military, the Army, the DoD, etc. So I think sometimes people are buying Palantir and they don't realize like there's more to this than just like a commercial AIP business. Like 60% or 55% of the revenues are from the government actually caring about maintaining a strong level of defense. So yeah, I mean, like the military is the reason for a lot of this stuff. And I think, quite frankly, right now, it's the only reason why our debt is continue to be bought by other entities. Like, do you want China's debt or do you want the United States debt? You look at the United States military, look at China's military, look at United States freedom, United States GDP. All right, we'll buy U.S. debt. And that's currently what we have right now. Robinhood is falling right now because Bitcoin and the market's taking a little dump. Look, I like Robinhood under 22. I like it at these levels. I like it 22.50 and below. I did the analysis today. If you didn't see my Twitter post, I'll put it again in the chat. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very long, but if you're really interested in Robinhood and trying to think of an entry price or your thesis on it, read this post. It goes very in depth on what I think Q3 is going to look like. If I'm right on the numbers, then we're growing 40%. And then we have the October catalyst. We have general Bitcoin crypto momentum. And then we have rate cuts coming up. Like, I think 25 end of year is very possible. So I do like Robinhood at these levels. People born here will never truly appreciate the American military. Dude, this is so true. The amount of people I know that have been born in America from college and high school that do not appreciate the freedoms we have or what it takes to get these freedoms or how much people have to die not just to protect these freedoms. By the way, that is not to absolve America of all the shitty things we've done, because there are plenty of things on that list. But when you look at that in comparison to all the other countries that still are governed by like certain laws that are etched in stone that are not adaptable to the will of the people, aka they are not democratic. And you can say America is not a perfect democracy. I get it, but it's better than a lot of the other ones we have. It is unfathomable the amount of people that don't understand how much shit people had to go through just for us to have the freedom. Just for me to say, yeah, I don't like Donald Trump or I don't like Kamala Harris. Like, just to even have that freedom of speech, it is something uniquely special in America. But my generation doesn't care about it. You try talking about that stuff. Shout out to Chris Patel as well and other vets for their service, dude. Like the concept of a veteran, I get emotional when I think about it, bro. I get I've never served my country the way the vets have served our country, but I'm getting all the benefits from what they did living in this country. What's the most I've done? Pay some taxes. It's one of the, and like you talk about this with people in my generation. They're like, yeah, but look at what Israel's doing and America's supporting it. So like, I get it. Those are all valid. Yeah, you have tons of reasons to be upset in America, but at the fundamental architecture of what this country is built on. And also, if you go really deep into why America is supporting Israel and what Israel is a democracy, again, it's not black or white. There's so much nuance. What Israel is doing. There's probably a lot of things if Biden or someone else got to really advise Netanyahu to not do. They would probably say, hey, probably don't do this. This is not going to be the right way. But at its core, you've got a country that values freedom in America. And that's something that I think we cannot deny. Code Johnson says, as a vet, I get teary-eyed every time they hear the national anthem song. It hits different when you truly know what it takes to be free. It's like, and you talk to some of these people that are my friends that are born in America that are basically, I have a ton of friends that are super like screw America, pro-Palestine, whatever. Now you can be pro-Palestine. I have no issue. You can be pro-Israel, pro-Palestine. There's a lot of nuances. You can be whatever side you want to be. But when they're pro-Palestine, what comes with it, and I see this just through their Instagram posts when I go through some of their content, it's like, America sucks. America's horrible. Hamas is like what we should be like funding. Hamas is like the freedom fighters and all that stuff. Again, you can have those beliefs. You're allowed to have those beliefs. But in those beliefs, there is a lot of hatred for America. And I'm like, you can have those beliefs, but also recognize America's not the worst country in the world, and still recognize the freedoms that America holds as sovereign, that people have had to fight for those freedoms, even if you have those other political beliefs. But a lot of times when you go down a rabbit hole, you end up hating America. And I don't think that's the best thing in the world. I just don't think that's a right way to think about it. There's no good guys. There's just a way of life. It's all perspective, and we do our best to help and not get blown up too many times. I agree. It's not black or white. It is absolutely not black or white when we're thinking about Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia. There's like so much nuances to it, 3860. But with people that have certain beliefs, it ends up coming with a hatred of America. And that's the part where I'm like, okay, you can believe what you want, but we also have to remember how many people fought to get to our freedoms. Again, it really does make me emotional, as Code Johnson was saying in the chat, when it comes to veterans. Like, I have not done anything for this country, dude. Nothing. I even, as Sam says, not even jury. I even got out of jury duty, bro. I got out of fucking jury duty, which, by the way, they might call me back in November, and I'm going to have some excuse because I would miss the show, bro. I can't miss the show for a week because of jury duty. Like, see, I'm sacrificing my civic duty to do this show, to entertain you guys, which is also a duty, I would argue. It is a duty to entertain you guys, right? But like, even that, I'm not willing to do that, much less enlist in the army or the military. And so like, when I think about what veterans have gone through and what they've done, literally putting their life on the line, it makes me feel like shit because I've not done any of that. So the only thing I can do is at least have some level of utmost respect for the people that have paid the ultimate price so that I can do a YouTube show every morning in one of the greatest countries on the planet. And also, the other thing I can do is have a little bit more respect for America when I see a bad headline about America. I can have a little bit more sympathy of like, okay, so this is bad, but in comparison to everything else that's going on that's bad, in comparison to what Iraq is doing or what China's doing and how women can't drive in certain countries based on certain laws, it's like, okay, these are some shitty things America's doing, but is it as bad? And I think part of being American is to strive for a better union, right? That's the whole point. And it's like the reason America lives up to these ideals and even is critiqued for not living up to the ideals is because we constantly expect better from us. Other countries don't have any fucking ideals to live up to. There's no ideals. It's just whatever. It's just do whatever the fuck we want. And it's my way or the highway. And that's it. And that's why I'm actually worried about this election coming up. I really hope there is a peaceful transfer of power. I am quite worried that whatever side wins, there is going to be a lot of civil unrest based on the Democrats or the Republicans, and there's going to be it's going to be kind of dicey going into November 5th. I think that right there is a real risk for the market. I believe it will be resolved, hopefully, but if it's not, that's something where the markets can get pretty damn scared in terms of how we price in just the general stability in the United States. Derek says the United States realized slavery was wrong. Women should be equal so fast compared to every other country and empire in history. 1000%, bro. Like, slavery, horrible in America. What we did to women, horrible in America. But we reversed and changed. Like, we actually changed. Other countries still have not fucking changed, dude. And it's like, that's the part where, like, when I talk to my friends about this stuff, they get so uptight and they're like, well, America's horrible and we hate America. I'm like, yeah, but like, we've done bad things, but we've actually tried to resolve some of those things. We're not perfect. These other countries, these other countries, like, if you're going to hold America to this moral standard, what do you think? But the other countries are like, oh, well, those other countries are fighting for freedom. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Some of those other countries are a lot more corrupt than America. And where, you're giving them the benefit of the doubt. You're not even giving this country the benefit of the doubt. Like, I remember one person said, death to all billionaires. They posted that on Instagram. And then the next story was their Amazon package that came. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Like, there's no way in hell you don't realize the only reason you got your Amazon package in 2 days is because Bezos is a billionaire who shared the market cap of Amazon, $2 trillion of wealth that he owns, 150 billion of, with the rest of the world. That's how you got your stupid Amazon package. It's because Bezos had a vision, a dream. He actually took some responsibility with his life. He actually tried. He took risks. He failed. He went through hell, seeing his stock go down 97%. And he prevailed. That is why you get your Amazon in 2 days. It's like, but there's zero appreciation from my generation around these issues. Like, I really feel like I'm on an island when I try to have these conversations with people my age. It's a lot of just like, oh, well, America should be better. America should be better. It's like, yeah, but can you at least acknowledge how decent it currently is? How amazing capitalism is? That's the part that really gets me, dude. Like the people that want to go back to a communist country, it's like, all right, this is just stupid now. This is like, it's like arguing with a child. It's like, okay, cool. So enjoy your Starbucks, which, by the way, have to go through millions of different forms of supply chains just to get your caramel latte to show up in a couple minutes while you're waiting that you're complaining about. But yeah, let's go back to communism. Like it's a smart idea. Sure. Anyway, that's my rant. I'm very grateful for America. I love America. I love this country. I think we should be able to critique this country. We should be able to have nuanced opinions, even that are not mainstream. Like, if the American government supports Israel and you don't support Israel, that's fine. You can have a different perspective, but that doesn't mean you think the American government is evil and America's evil just because you support Palestine over Israel, right? I think there has to be nuance. There just has to be nuance. And I think we are lacking a ton of nuance in this generation, at least my generation. As Chris says right here, this world will miss the USA when it falls. He's 1,000% correct. I mean, if the USA is not the world leader, that's the other thing, dude. A lot of these people that are like, well, life would be better in this country. It's like, all right, why don't you actually go try living there and see how amazing it is? Like, it's very easy. It's so easy to sit behind your keyboard and critique and be in a little coffee shop, drinking your macchiato, writing your article about how America is a white supremacist. Like, go live in some of those other countries that you feel are so, so underrated in terms of what they're doing in comparison to America. It's like, well, you're not going to do that because you're full of shit, and you know that those countries actually aren't all hyped up to be where you want to live. So you're going to stay your ass in the USA, and when you stay your ass in the USA while you critique it, then you're not going to recognize the reason you're able to critique it is because we have people die for the freedoms to be able to critique it. And I think that's the problem. All right, that's the end of my rant. Amit, did you see that Buttigieg just banned private drones from flying in the flood zones in North Carolina? I did not see that. Interesting. I think that kind of makes sense, right? Okay, here's the video. It's 23 seconds. Let's see what he had to say.
Our goal is to make sure that funding is no obstacle to very quickly getting people the relief that they need and deserve. There's also some safety issues that come up. For example, temporary flight restrictions to make sure that the airspace is clear for any flights or drone activity that might be involved in helping to allow those emergency responders to do their job. Our goal is to make sure that funding...
All right, so that's what they're doing in North Carolina. I think that flooding issue in North Carolina is still affecting the quartz stuff for mining for chips. Semi's not really reacting to that, but that still might be an issue that the market's dealing with. What other headlines do we have? We talked about OpenAI's $4 billion. ISM services were decent. PMI. Oh, we didn't talk about this. Tesla's planning 4 new batteries by 2026. Including 4 for the robotaxi. Tesla's reportedly working on 4 new versions of its in-house batteries aiming to power the Cybertruck, its upcoming robotaxi, and its other EVs by 2026. This is Tesla's most ambitious battery project to date, following Elon's 4680 battery plan, which he said would enable a $25,000 EV. The first new battery is expected to be used in the Cybertruck by mid-2025. Okay. Not a crazy update, but important that they are constantly pushing the edge and innovating on the battery technology. AMD is having an event on October 10th. That'll be an important event for AMD. Similar 10/10 event. Amazon's hiring 250,000 workers for the holiday season, same as last year. Morgan Stanley said 210 on Amazon, buy it. We see tactical risk as a guide for Amazon's invest to drive its faster growing, lower marginal essentials business through a competitive holiday, but we have a detailed plan on how Amazon will make these items profitable. So basically operating margins are going to go up. Oh, this headline we didn't talk about as well. Google, we've been talking about nuclear for like 2 weeks now, right? Google's considering nuclear power to meet AI energy demands. Google CEO told Nikkei Asia that the company is exploring nuclear energy options, including small modular reactors to meet the growing energy demands of its AI initiatives. We are now looking at additional investments, be it solar, and evaluating technologies like small modular nuclear reactors. He also reiterated Google's ambitious goal of net zero emissions by 2030, acknowledging that AI investments have added to the challenge. So energy will continue to be. Yeah, I just blocked that guy, dude. I don't know what he was typing, some random spamming in the chat. But energy continues to catch a bid. And nuclear is one of the parts that catches that bid. Those were the main headlines. Oh, another one. Meta is going to use photos from the Ray-Ban smart glasses to train AI. Interesting. I guess so. If you take a photo with your Ray-Ban smart glasses, that'll be data Meta uses, which is not a horrible way. I don't know what the privacy on that looks like, but I guess that is another level of data that they'll have for Meta. Biden, hold on. What is this headline? Biden administration can move forward with student loan forgiveness for now? That's a real headline? Is that a Supreme Court thing that came out? What is this? 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 Where's Pounter, by the way? Where's Pounter? Pounter 3868. Dude, Pounter actually tries to crack 39. That would be incredible. Biden administration can move forward with student loan forgiveness, federal judge says. A federal judge will let expire a temporary restraining order against the Biden administration's sweeping new student loan forgiveness plan, which could deliver relief to tens of millions of Americans. This ruling means Biden may move forward with his administration's student loan forgiveness plan just weeks before the November election. Is this the $10,000 per borrower forgiveness? There's no way. The Supreme Court struck that down, right? The development stems from a lawsuit against the bid aid package brought by 7 GOP-led states. However, Hall found that Georgia lacked standing to sue against the relief plan and could not be the venue for the case. Wait, is SoFi down on this? Is SoFi down on this? Damn, SoFi just fell 1%. Dang, SoFi just fell. I don't think this is mass forgiveness, though, like he promised in 2020. Unless I'm reading it wrong. Let me see if I can get more details. I don't think it is. If it is, then people are going to get a $10,000 paycheck right before the election on their student loans. But I don't think it's this. The Supreme Court definitely got rid of that. I don't know. I got to get more details on this one. That's interesting, though. Is that why Oklo was up 20% yesterday? Yeah, probably. Probably. Beneficial just bought SoFi on this news, or before this news. Look, Q3 earnings should be good for SoFi. I think we should get a breakout, but we'll see. We should see what happens. Just for those in school during COVID, yeah, I think it's a very it's a hyper-specific restriction. I don't think it's or forgiveness. I don't think it's broad sweeping. If it was broad sweeping, the U.S. would be spending about $400 billion on eliminating student loans. I had 10,000 in the beginning of the year. That's down to like 6,000 now, so I have 6,000 left. And then my student loans are done. But yeah, I don't think I'm getting any forgiveness because it's not the same type of policy that he ran on. Oh boy, what else? Thiel did have some interesting thoughts about student loan forgiveness. He said it should be more so in the context of like making sure colleges can't do this again. Or forcing colleges to actually pick up the forgiveness, which they have the endowments to be able to do. Like they have a way to do that. Yeah, here's him. Here's a couple minutes of him talking about this. This was actually some interesting thoughts on student loans.
I think saw that maybe those Ivy League institutions maybe weren't producing the best and brightest or weren't exactly hitting their mandate, and you created the Thiel Fellows. And you've been doing that for a while, and I meet them all because they all have crazy ideas and they pitch me for angel investment. What have you learned getting people to quit school, giving them $100,000, and then how many parents call you and get really upset that their kids are quitting school?
I've learned a lot. I mean, I don't know. I think the universities are far worse than I even thought when I started this thing. I think, yeah, it's I did this debate at Yale last week. Resolved higher education's a bubble, and you sort of go through all the different numbers and then and again I was careful to word it in such a way that I didn't have to and then people kept saying, well, what's your alternative? What should people do instead? And I said, nope, was not the debate. I'm not your guidance counselor. I'm not your career counselor. I don't know how to solve your problems. But if something's a bubble, the first thing you should do is probably not, lean into it in too crazy a way. And the student debt was $300 billion in 2000. It's basically close to $2 trillion at this point. So it's just been this sort of runaway process. And then if you look at it by cohort, if you graduated from college in 1997, 12 years later, people still had student debt, but most of the people had sort of paid it down. But by 2009, we started the Thiel Fellowship in 2010, and it felt by 2009 was the first cohort where this really stopped. If you take the people who graduated from college in 2009 and you fast forward 12 years to 2021, the median person had more student debt 12 years later than they graduated with, because it's actually just compounding faster. And it was partially the global financial crisis, that people had less well-paying jobs, they stayed in college longer, and the colleges, it's just sort of been this background thing where it's decayed in these really significant ways. And again, I think it's on some level there are sort of a lot of debates in our society that are probably dominated by sort of a boomer narrative, and maybe the baby boomers were the last generation where college really worked, and they think, well, I worked my way through college, and why can't an 18-year-old going to college do that today? And so I think the bubble will be done once the boomers have exited stage left.
But does the government need to stop?
It'd be good if we figured something out before then.
Does the government need to stop underwriting the loans? Because it's the lending. I think the 90+% of the capital in the student loan programs is funded by the federal government. And if you're an accredited university, you can take out a loan and go to it. And accreditation in a rigid kind of free market system, you would have an underwriter that says, are you going to be able to graduate, make enough money to pay your loan off? Is this a good school? Are you going to get a good job? And then the market would figure out whether or not to give you a loan, would figure out what the rate should be, and so on. But in this case, the government simply provides capital to support all of this. And as a result, everything's gotten more expensive. And the rigidity in the system that basically qualifies schools and the quality of those schools relative to the earning potential over time is gone. Sure. So we need the government to get out of the student loan business.
Yeah, but look, the place where I know I'm sort of, some ways I'm right wing, some ways I'm left wing on this. So the place where I'm left wing is, I do think a lot of the students got ripped off, and so I think there should be some kind of broad relief, debt forgiveness at this point.
Who should pick up the tab?
But it's not just the taxpayers; it's the universities, and it's the bondholders.
Got it.
The bondholders,
take a little bit out of those endowments.
And the universities, and
it's not a horrible idea, dude. I mean, a lot of these universities benefited off of this bubble. If they could help reduce the extent of the bubble, I don't think it's a horrible idea.
And then obviously, if you just make it the taxpayers, then the universities can just charge more and more.
There's no
every year,
incentive
no incentive to reform whatsoever. But
you've had
also, I mean, if
it's in 2005, it was under Bush 43 that the bankruptcy laws got rewritten in the U.S., where you cannot discharge student debt even if you go bankrupt, and if you haven't paid it off by the time you're 65, your Social Security wage checks will be garnished.
It's crazy.
So, I do think,
but that's wild, bro. If you don't pay back your student debt, you don't get Social Security. Like this is the one type of debt you cannot get rid of in this country.
We stop lending. Should the federal government get out of the student lending business?
Well, if we say that if we start with my place where a lot of the student debt should be forgiven, and then
reform the
and
whole
then we'll
program.
see how many people are willing to lend. How many of the colleges can pay for all the students.
What's your sense if it was a totally free market system? How many colleges would shut down because they wouldn't be able to? So there's no tuition support.
It probably would be a lot smaller. You might not have to shut them down because there's a lot of them have gotten extremely bloated. It's like Baumol's cost disease, where I don't know if I have no idea. Like a place like UCLA, it probably has twice or three times as many bureaucrats as they had 30, 40 years ago. So there's sort of all these sort of parasitic people that have sort of gradually accrued, and so there's probably there would be a lot of rational ways to dial this back, but yeah, maybe
we're going to need a new location for next year.
If the only way to lose weight is to cut off your thumb, that's kind of a difficult way to go on a diet.
Peter, eat 3 of your.
All right, that's Thiel on student loans. That is it for me today, folks. Another 3-hour stream, I think, every day. It's turning into 3 hours, 8:45 to basically 11:45. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Meta's at all-time highs right now at 580. Pouncer's at 38.64. If we hold 38.50, I'll be really happy towards the end of the day. We'll see at 3:45 how that turns out. And Nvidia right now is at 123. I will be back at 3:45 at 4 p.m. I will have a ton of Pouncer employees talking about DevCon. So make sure you're here at 4 p.m. It'll be really fun. Chad, a couple other people you guys haven't met. They're going to be introducing what DevCon is, talking about how you can win a free trip, and then kind of show off. If you want to get into some nerdy technical stuff, like not valuations or numbers, but like actually looking at the technology, that's what we're going to do from 4 to 4:30 on the market close. So that's going to be important. Also, we get money market outflows and inflows today at 4 p.m. So we'll see. Last week we increased by 120 billion, 6.42 trillion. Today at about 4 p.m. we'll see if we increased or decreased and what those updates look like. And that'll be it for the market close. I don't think we have any earnings today. Let me make sure. No earnings today. So money market funds and the Pouncer employees, that'll be kind of the main thing on the market close today. Word of the day. Word of the day is strafe.
Strafe or strafe?
Okay, strafe or strafe. To reprimand viciously. When the teacher was unhappy with the test results and strafed for several minutes. When our team missed the deadline, our manager strafed in an email. Okay, so basically to be upset is straight, or like to get upset at a group of people in a certain way when something goes the other direction. When our team missed the deadline, our manager strafed in an email. Basically, when I mispronounce something, the chat strafes at me constantly. It was so crazy. I was talking about it with a friend the other day. I was like, dude, like, been speaking for 10 years and then I'll mess up on like Estee Lauder or whatever, these random words. And it's like, how does this guy not know how to talk sometimes? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what happens in the moment. There's certain words I just can't say. And it is what it is. Or when you say you hate mayo, correct. I also get strafed. That sounds kind of weird. I get strafed when I say I hate mayo. All right. That's it. See you guys, 3:45. We'll be back. Pouncer employees, money market inflows, outflows, and we will keep going from there. Maybe Pouncer has a chance for 39. We'll see. 38.66 right now. CrowdStrike 286. CrowdStrike actually is up 2%. Nvidia 123. S&P at 568. Where's Hood right now? Hood is low 22s, I think. 22.29, back up from 22.05. So there was a little dip at 22.05, now back at 22.30. And Pouncer here at 38.63 right now on the day. All right. See you guys at 3:45. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.